Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 21st regular business board meeting of the Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd also like to welcome our new acting superintendent, Dr. Marseille. So this is his first official meeting, board meeting, I should say, as acting superintendent. So we're glad that you're here. And at this point, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. I guess it's my first meeting. It is extremely unfortunate that I greet you with some very sad news. It's not what I expected as my opening speech, but this is a testimonial of life can take some unexpected turns and remind us what is really important. As you may know, today has been a very difficult and sad day for the Lower Merion District community. Earlier this afternoon, with a heavy heart, we're informed our staff and Penguin families of a tragic car accident involving one of our colleagues. Jeremy Valentine, a network technician in our information systems department since 1999, passed away in the accident late Sunday. He was traveling with his wife, Shauna, a former Lmsb teacher, and their young children, both students at Penguin. Shauna is hospitalized in critical condition. The children are receiving care for their injuries in the hospital and are both in stable condition. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Valentine family at this incredibly difficult time. Jeremy was not only a wonderful father, but also a well-loved and respected colleague who made enormous, lasting contributions to our district. He was brilliant, funny, hardworking, loyal, and exceptionally talented. We grieve for the loss of an extraordinary person and hope with all our hearts for the health and well-being of his wife and kids. A response team has been formed to support the school community. Members of the team include school psychologists and counselors are available this week in the district administrative building. These services will be accessible to any student or family who may need or want additional help. For information, families may contact the District Student Services Office. I'll give the number, but you can go to our website at 610-645-1918. Obviously, it's a very challenging and emotional time for everyone. The Valentines are a close-knit family known and admired by so many in our community and have been integrally involved in activities with Alex Lemonade Stand and Girls Scouts. As we move forward over the coming weeks and months, we do so together, inspired by the spirit and strengthened by the compassion and care of our community. Please keep the Valentines in your thoughts and prayers.
At this time, I'd ask that we please observe a moment of silence to honor Jeremy and the Valentine family and to send our thoughts and prayers for the health of his wife and children. So please, a moment of silence. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on with our regular meeting, and again, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Marseille.
Thank you. So if I can, obviously from the terrible news you just received or aware of, I can try to shift in terms of from that to acknowledging the great work that our students and staff do here every single day. So I'll take a few minutes to highlight some of their accomplishments since the last time we met as a board. Our Technology Student Association teams recently returned from the TSA National Conference in Washington as one of the most decorated groups in the entire country. After capturing the highest place finishes of any school district at the state level, Lmsb teams did the same at the national level. Among the highlights, Walsh Valley earned a top 10 finish in an impressive 19 different events. Coach Katie Morris also received the TSA Advisor of the Year Award for her dedicated leadership of Walsh Valley's TSA program. Ballard Kinwood's Ethan Frank captured first place for the second consecutive year in the electrical appliance event, so we're extremely proud of that work. Laura Marion captured the first place in chapter team event, which focuses on parliamentary procedures like that used by the United States House of Representatives, Senate, and the United Nations. The Parliament running the event said it was the best performance he had since his 14 years as a judge. So congratulations to Laura Marion and their work. Harrison TSA finished the 2013-14 season with multiple top 10 finishes and continued the club's tradition of leadership and service, as the team was once again recognized for their work with the American Cancer Society. We are also proud to announce that 9 Lmsd high school students earned the rank of Eagle Scout this year. This is a remarkable total and certainly the largest group of Heritage and Lower Marion students in recent memory. And finally, Ballard Kinwood School 8th grader Joanna Gerber was recently selected as a winner in the 5th annual New York Times Found Poetry Contest for submission and called Born Alive. So we want to acknowledge the great work that those students are doing and the advisors and the teachers since the last time we met. Thank you. Before we begin with tonight's presentation, what I wanted to do is we have a special guest in the audience. We have the hiring of an assistant principal at Harriton High School, Phil Mattia, the former principal who is leaving us for another district, and I wanted to move this agenda item up so that we can acknowledge Michael Johnson, and Scott Everslog is here as the principal of Harriton High School. Introduce him, and he'll say hi to us, and he will not have to sit for the entire meeting, and his family, though you are very welcome to participate if you like. So, Mr. Everslog, can you please come to the mic?
Thank you, Dr. Marseille. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, members of the board. It's my pleasure this evening to recommend to the superintendent, to the board, that we move forward with the hiring of Mr. Michael Johnson as the assistant principal at Harriton High School. In getting to know Mr. Johnson, we're very pleased not only with the potential that he will provide for Harriton and our district, but we're very confident he's just the right person and the right fit for what we need at this time. Mr. Johnson was a successful teacher, curriculum specialist, and assistant principal in the Abington School District, and most recently was a principal in the Centennial School District prior to joining us at Harriton High School. Mr. Johnson, through the rigorous interview process, certainly showed to us his knowledge of pedagogy and instructional leadership that was evident, that he's willing to work with teachers to improve instruction in the classroom. But the feature and the characteristic of Mr. Johnson that struck us most was his warmth and his ability to connect with people. And as we all know, the heart of our business is working with people. And he'll be charged with the task of transitioning our students to the 9th grade from middle school, a step that all of you, perhaps most of you, have gone through as families and know that that's a really important transition. We're confident that Mr. Johnson will be the right person to welcome families and students to the high school and make that transition a very smooth one. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Michael Johnson.
Good evening. I would just like to thank the Board of School Directors and Central Administration for this opportunity to join the Lower Marion School District. I look forward to working at Harriton High School and joining the families and communities and working with children to continue the standard of excellence that Harriton has held for such a long time. So thank you and have a good evening.
Welcome again. Yeah. Before we get started with our presentation, I just want to say that the board requested the administration do a presentation this evening on buses in response to the many, many questions that we got from community members about this issue. So we wanted to get out as much information as quickly and to as wide a group as we could, which is why we chose to do this. The way this is going to work is that the administration will give their presentation. The board will have an opportunity to ask questions, and then at that time, I will open up an opportunity for people to ask questions and give comments on agenda items only. So at the beginning of the meeting is for agenda items only, which the bus presentation is an agenda item. I'm going to ask that if anybody wants to speak on an agenda item that's not related to the buses, that after the presentation, they come up and, where's Ms. LaPera? Oh, there she is. Sign in with Ms. LaPera and indicate that that's what you're going to do, because we thought we would let you go first, so that if you had an issue you wanted to talk about before we started taking comments around the buses. And then we'll have our regular agenda. And then at the end of the meeting, there is also an opportunity for public comment on any issue. So that'll be the format for this evening. And again, I'll explain it as we go through it. So I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Marseille.
Excellent. Good evening. As I had the opportunity to have great advantage of the view of the room, it's good to see, as I thought about, it's great that so many people came out to welcome me in my first meeting as acting superintendent and encouraged me Godspeed. But I know that there are a lot of questions and a lot of concerns that we are very optimistic and hopeful that we can engage in that dialogue with you. So this is what I see when I look out into the audience. And some faces I recognize. Others I am meeting and will meet for the first time tonight. Didn't envision this a conversation we'd be having the first meeting, but nonetheless, I'm happy that all of you have come out to make sure that your voices are heard. So when I look at the audience, I see a tremendous amount of individuals who are deeply passionate and committed about their community. And it wouldn't be Lower Merion School District without people like you. So as we engaged in this conversation, as we go into intellectual discourse and we wrestle with some issues, as we move into cognitive dissidence, that this all comes from that place. It all comes from commitment and passion that you have as community members for the community and for the district. So in that spirit, I do genuinely welcome you to tonight's conversation. What's going to happen tonight, if I can follow up with Dr. Gilbert, is that myself and Pat Gannanen, our Director of Operations, and Vic Orlando, our Business Manager, will be supporting me in a presentation that attempts to answer some of the questions that we have received from the community with regards to concerns. And we hope we can answer those for you tonight. In the event that there are things that we need to go back to, do a little bit more homework, we will make sure that obviously this is being televised for you to review. We are going to post the PowerPoint presentation on our website. We will develop an FAQ for questions that need further clarity and questions that we didn't get to. So we are here because we realize that the issue of bus parking has been a long-standing issue, not only in terms of that being for the district, but for the community. And we understand that the reality is that there is a challenging issues that require long-term solutions community-wide. The district has considered numerous sites and strategies for parking buses over the last decade. And long-term planning around this issue is necessary and can only occur if the district and township work together to identify a viable solution. We recently engaged the township staff to get direction how to best proceed, and we're advised to focus exclusively on commercially zoned properties. We believe that with that recommendation, we went forward in good faith and tried to identify commercially zoned properties as well. Our current need for bus parking is a direct result of our enrollment across the district, which I will show you in a little bit the next slide that represents that. The situation dictates that we must identify and secure property bus parking by August of 2015. And as I think about that date and think about what some people might be processing or I'd be processing, is that this window might seem like a large window. But in terms of ensuring that we go through the planning, design, construction, bidding process, we're going to need that window to make sure that we meet our deadline for having, for being prepared by the summer of 2016 for the property. Here we attempt to summarize the purpose of our meeting tonight, and try to provide, and we'll provide you some background about our current situation, explain our needs as a district, and encourage community engagement as we seek solution. Though we believe that some of our options are limited, we are optimistic that we can come to a resolution to meet our current needs. Sorry for the small print, but I wanted to provide you, or we wanted to provide you, with a sample of questions. These are not in its entirety all the questions that we have received from the community and probably from individuals sitting in the audience. But we wanted to make sure that we give you a sample of some questions that have been asked, questions that we will attempt to answer for you tonight, and questions that will be posted, an FAQ that we posted on our website for your further review. So the reality is that enrollment growth is real, and it is here. The administration has shared publicly numerous growth analysis and projections as we anticipate this. As you can see from the graph where we try to speak to what our projection numbers are in blue and where we currently are as a district. These are 10-day enrollments for those 2 years in 12, 13, 13, 14, and you see that we are slightly ahead of our projections, which really necessitates our need to act in preparation for this growth. But I also wanted to share with you really the importance of, and clarify the importance of the value that students' transportation provides. And I know that everyone here understands and values the services that we provide to students with regard to transportation, but wanted to highlight some of the things that we do here. And we have an enormous fleet with great people who are working through ensuring those logistics operate effectively every single day. So this is, I said before, a community issue that we hope collectively we can find resolution to that process, but are very proud of the level of service that our transportation department provides to our students. And for those who maybe not be familiar, we wanted to highlight the day-to-day activities that occur throughout transportation, the services that we provide during the school year, after school, and during the summer, and the numerous activities that are supported through transportation. And again, indication of the extent and the reach that we have with a total number of students who are afforded the opportunity, both public school and non-public schools students as well. This year, which higher than last year, we had over 10,555 total number of students that were serviced through the transportation department. So we're extremely proud, but wanted to bring attention to the efforts that go behind the work, and think about the number of field trips that are taking, the number of buses we have in our fleet, obviously the large number of miles that we put in, and the over 100 schools that we provide service to. So with that, we like to think that our transportation department actually believe that in thinking about the work with acquiring a property to park our buses, which is why we're here to talk about that, and what we believe it means to be a good neighbor for those places where we have our buses parked. And we are very mindful and try to work very hard with the community with that respects, and at best as possible minimize some of those concerns, but obviously not being able to eliminate all of them. In terms of the limited hours of operation in which we believe we can operate that, the support in terms of beautification around that particular area, our national award-winning CNG fleets that we have in the district, and one of the best in the country. So with that, I really wanted to pass the microphone, or I should say move over and have Pat Ganand come to the podium, who is going to take you through a series of slides. And it's a lengthy set of slides, so we ask for your patience. But part of the message that Mr. Ganand will try to convey is provide you with an overview of the specific challenges that we face as a community and a district with regards to bus parking. And as we look at criteria involved in what makes good bus parking, and after that, Mr. Orlando, our business manager, will come up and conclude the presentation with a set of slides that continue to speak to some of the challenges that we have moving forward. So again, thank you for your attention and coming here, and look forward to hearing your concerns, and look forward to working with each and every single one of you to address some of those concerns. I do believe that at the core of this conversation is the best interest of our community, and we keep that at the forefront. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Ganani, if you can come and present some of your slides, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Marseille. This slide lays out the composition and location of our bus fleet. We have a total of 119 buses, and as you can see, they're currently stored at 3 different locations. It's not ideal to operate off of 3 different locations. Ideal would be to have 1 location, but we managed to do it. I want to point out before we leave the slide that we have buses at 2 of our high schools, Harriton and Lower Merion, and the number of buses on those sites is limited. It's limited by a condition of approval that we received as part of our approval to build the 2 new high schools. So we're limited to 24 buses at Lower Merion and 25 at Harriton. The remainder of the buses are at Matson Ford Road. In order to get a better sense of some of the challenges that we face in looking for a property to park buses, it's helpful to take a look at some maps. This is a land use map of our township. It shows the various uses. The red is the commercially zoned area. Again, Dr. Marseille mentioned that we were directed to look in those areas as being the best suited for bus parking. Not surprising that most of the township is residentially zoned, and there's not a lot of commercially zoned property. If we take a look at the same map, only this time we put the locations of the schools and our bus parking locations on, you can see how that lays out across the map. And then nextly, if we look at where all the students live, and the symbols here indicate the number of students, we can also see that the students follow the demographic distribution that we see in our township where most people live on the eastern side. So you see where the students are, you see where the buses are parked. We have a number of challenges that we have to overcome in trying to find a place to park buses. And so overcoming those challenges then becomes the things that we look for in a bus parking site. Obviously, we'd like to have a property of the proper size and configuration to be able to park a number of buses that makes sense. The zoning will have to allow for bus parking. Cost is a consideration, purchase of the property and development of the property. The location of the property in relation to where the students live, which then again contributes to better operational efficiency. So when we go looking for a site, those are the kind of things we're looking for. That's the criteria. And obviously no one site is going to meet 100% of those criteria, but that's the kind of thing that we look for. What I want to do now is walk through all the properties listed here and talk in a little more detail about them. These are broken up into where our school buildings are located. 3 locations that we own where there are no school buildings, it's just support operations. Some additional properties we've looked at, and then properties that have been suggested by the community. So the first thing I wanted to do was take a look at the idea of parking buses on our schools. This is a suggestion that many in the community have come up with to distribute buses among all the schools. It's a very logical question, but I'm going to show you the difficulties involved in this. First of all, some of the sites we have simply have no room. The parking lots are too small to allow for bus parking, even minibuses, and maneuvering of buses. There are some areas where we could park buses, and I'll show you that. However, if we park buses on existing parking, we're displacing parking that's there for the staff. And so those people then have to find a place to park off the school. Plus, we have requirement to park for the driver and the driver's aide if the bus has an aide on it. It's going to be difficult or almost impossible to secure buses that are located out at the different schools. Our idea of a secure bus storage area for nights and for weekends is an area that's fenced and locked and lighted and has video surveillance. In addition, I mentioned that we already operate from 3 locations. If we were to go ahead and add buses at, say, 4 buses here, 6 buses here, et cetera, we're just complicating the management challenges that we face every day. Each bus has a predetermined route, but invariably on a daily basis there are changes that come up. There are changes related to student requirements. There are changes related to the equipment. What happens if the bus won't start? And there are changes related to personnel, people who are not present, we have substitutes who have to cover for them, et cetera. All these things are made much more complicated by having a few buses distributed out to different locations. 3 locations we have now, we're dealing with it. So let me go and look at each one of the buildings. We'll start with Belmont Hills. Belmont Hills has 2 parking lots, one here and one here, and I'm moving the cursor around here so you can see. But there actually is a portion of the site where you could park some minibuses, and that's up here where this red rectangle is. Can't do the cursor, okay.
You're unable to see the cursor from here.
Okay, well, I'll just refer to it then. At the top of the drawing, there's a red rectangle, and that is an area where you could park some minibuses. By my calculation, you could park 4 of them. If you did that, you would displace 13 existing parking spaces. 4 minibuses is probably going to generate 8 parking requirements, 4 drivers and 4 aides. So right there you have 21 parking spaces that can't be met on site and would have to be met by parking somewhere in the neighborhood. Again, we have the same security and management concerns that I've mentioned before, and for that reason, we would not recommend it. Moving on to Kinwood Elementary School. Kinwood's kind of a unique building. There is no surface parking lot at Kinwood. The parking for Kinwood is in an underground garage. Buses would not fit in the underground garage. So that would not be recommended. I'm going to talk about the next few schools, Gladwin and Marion and Penn Valley, and they all have the same characteristics. From the aerial shot, they look like they're pretty big, but the parking areas at those schools are not large enough to allow for even minibus parking or for allow a bus to maneuver in and out to try to park. So for that reason, we would not recommend Gladwin. Marion is a similar situation. It's located on Bowman Avenue. And the same with Penn Valley, located at the intersection of Hagees Ford Road and Writers Mill Road. Penn Elementary School. This is a location where we could park some buses. And again, you'll see a red rectangle in the middle of the parking lot to the upper part of the drawing. We could park 4 minibuses if they were double stacked, and we would give up 6 parking staff. We would displace 6 parking spaces. However, as I mentioned earlier, that would generate an additional 8 parking requirements for the drivers and the aides. So you got 14 there. And in fact, there's room there. We could actually park 8 minibuses in the same fashion, but now we're talking about 28 people that have to park off-site because we've done that. Again, we have the same security and management concerns, and for that reason, we're not recommending Penn Win. So let's take a look at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. This is located on Bryn Mawr Avenue. It has a large faculty parking lot, and we could in fact park buses there as well. And that's at the upper part of the drawing here, and again, there's a red rectangle showing where we could park those. By my estimate, we could park 6 minibuses in there, but in doing that, we would displace 30 staff parking spaces, and we would generate another 12 requirements for 42 parking requirements that would have to be met off-site. Again, we would have security and management concerns, and therefore, we would not recommend that. So that leaves us to Welsh Valley. And what I want to do here is describe to you the project in progress at Welsh Valley now. We have a project to add classrooms at Welsh Valley, and that is to meet the projected enrollment increase that was talked about earlier. And the blue rectangle on the map is where the classroom wing is being built. Project started this summer. The enrollment growth, in fact, is already with us. And because of that, we had to put in temporary classrooms, shown in pink there, last summer. And they'll be with us until we finish this project, and then they'll go away. Because the district was able to acquire the former St. Justin property, which is adjacent to Welsh Valley, we were able to do this project. This approval that we received has 54 parking spaces located in the bottom of the picture, where the blue dotted area is around the former church parking lot. So 54 of those spaces were required to be there for the approval to add on to Welsh Valley. Having that property allowed us to do it. The other part of our plan is to demolish the former rectory building, and that's shown in the dotted red rectangle. and convert that area into a playing field. It's not a regulation-sized playing field, but it's a playing field and one that we can use with our co-curricular activities and will also be a benefit to the community. When the district acquired the St. Justin's property, the priority was to be able to support classroom expansion at Welsh Valley. And as I pointed out, having that property allowed us to get approval to do that, and the additional parking required is located on that property. It also provides the district with long-term flexibility for instructional and curricular programs that we don't identify now but may need in the future. It is the only property we have that affords us that opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, the playing field meets our needs and also assists the community. So when the district went to the township and requested approval for land development to build the additional classrooms, those were the priorities that we had in mind. Support education and have long-term flexibility. Therefore, at the time, we stated publicly that we would not park buses at Welsh Valley. Moving on to look at Lower Merion High School. This is a schematic of Lower Merion High School. On the right-hand side is Montgomery Avenue. The various parking areas are shown in the different letters. There are 430 spaces on site here, and they're allocated as shown there. As I mentioned earlier, we have buses parked on site. We're limited to 24. There are 24 buses parked on site. Last fall, when we looked at high school parking in relation to enrollment expansion, we looked at the concept of adding a parking deck at Lower Merion High School. And this is a concept design for that parking deck. And basically, I'm going to flip back here. That parking deck would extend over the top of where you see buses parked and the parking lot lettered D. So that would be a one-level structure that would be accessible from existing parking lot on the west side of the administration building, the one that we call parking lot C here. That deck would be available from there, and there would be no ramp between the two levels. This would net us an increase of 78 parking spaces, which we believe would meet the demand that's been projected. And we have a cost estimate based on the concept design for $2.4 million. However, to do so requires land development approval, and it would also take bus parking off the site for at least a year in order to construct it. It would contribute to congestion on campus during construction as well as afterward, and for those reasons, we don't recommend the parking structure. We take a look at Harriton High School. Again, we have an aerial view of the high school. You see the total number of parking spaces and how they're allocated. And it also indicates on here where the 25 buses are parked on the site. Again, we have buses at Harriton. We're limited to 25. We have 25 on site. We're not recommending any changes there. So now I want to take a look at 3 properties that the district owns that don't have schools on them. The first one is on Rock Hill Road. This is at 5565 Rock Hill Road. The property we own is delineated here by the red dotted line. It consists of a warehouse office building and an office building. We have our operations department, my office is located there as well as a warehouse. We have our information systems department located there as well as a warehouse. We also have our nutritional services warehouse there. We even have the district laundry there. And as indicated, we also park some of our service vehicles that we use for maintaining the buildings. There are 42 parking spaces on site. The site is fully utilized. It would not be able to take any buses. The parking that you see outside the dotted red line on the upper part of the drawing does not belong to us. That property belongs to our neighbor next door at 33 Rock Hill Road. Some of you may have seen some Lower Merion High School equipment parked there. It's true. There's a crew trailer parked there. Mr. Weitzman, out of the goodness of his heart, being a Lower Merion High School alum, allows us to park it there, but that's not our property. We own a building on Belmont Avenue, 425 Belmont Avenue. It's right next to the Comcast building that's located at the intersection of Belmont Avenue and Levering Mill Road. An easier way to describe this property would be to say it's across the street from Mama's Pizza. This is where our grounds folks are located. Again, it's a very small property. It has a combination warehouse office. And all the grounds equipment is located either inside the warehouse or stored outside in the yard that you see there. There are 12 parking spaces. There are 10 employees. Again, this site is fully utilized and would not be available for bus parking. And lastly, let me talk about Matson Ford Road. This is a property that's all the way up on the other end of the township. The properties across the street are not in Lower Merion Township. So this is our main facility for storing buses and also for doing maintenance on our buses, and we also have our transportation offices there. So as indicated earlier in the chart, we have 70 buses parked there right now. We have 104 employees who report there every morning. This photo is very deceptive because it must have been taken on a weekend or something. You don't see any of those cars there. But all those spaces that are lined, that are empty, that's where all the people park. This is a very full site. We think we could probably squeeze a few more buses in here, maybe 5 or 6, but we certainly couldn't take all the buses that are at Lower Merion High School, the 24 buses there. Some members of the community have suggested that we look at constructing a parking structure here, and we are in fact following up on that, and we have consultants looking at that right now.
Okay. I want to go over some of the history of some of the properties you looked at in the last year. I do apologize for the small print. It's also an eye exam for anybody out there who can read this. You're in really good shape of your eyes. But anyway, these 40-plus properties over the course of the last year that we have evaluated and considered within the community and outside the community. There are a few properties that have been suggested to us that I want to go over. 3 of them in particular, 925 Montgomery Avenue, 1339 Woodbine Avenue, and 1521 Bala Avenue, very shortly in detail. The fourth one, the Rock Hill Road area, there's issues there with zoning, space limitations, and currently there's no feasible property for sale. So looking at the first property, 925 Montgomery Avenue, that was suggested to us, known as the Annie Says property. We did have a consultant who evaluated the property and did prepare this design parking sketch, as you can see on the screen. You can see the property is very small, it's very narrow, which makes it very difficult for the buses to turn and to maneuver on this particular property. So this property has been deemed as not large enough to park buses. In addition to that, there are zoning issues. You can see on the diagram on the screen, it is C1 or commercial zoning and also residential zoning. The commercial property does permit bus parking, the residential does not. The 1339 Woodbine Avenue property, this is a 4-acre residentially zoned property. Again, we had a consultant who evaluated and prepared this parking sketch or concept sketch showing the potential parking capacity for 41 buses and 52 car spaces. However, zoning is an issue as the property is zoned residential and therefore the parking of buses is not permitted. So that brings us to 15 to 21 Bala Avenue. This is an aerial view of the properties as they're outlined in the dotted yellow square. So the questions come up, why 1521 Bala Avenue? As was mentioned earlier in the presentation, there's a criteria that the district has identified when determining a good location for bus parking for various reasons such as zoning, logistics, size, availability, or other concerns. Only the Bala commercial properties have met the criteria for viable options mentioned earlier tonight. The Bala properties are located in Lower Merion School District. They are zoned commercial, which permits busing and is recommended by Lower Merion Township officials. As presented earlier on the township map, the vast majority of students are located in the eastern part of the township, making this an ideal location to park buses. Based upon the consultant's review of the property, there is significant room sufficient room for the district to park buses and related employee parking, as well as a driver support building. This property lends itself to proper security for the vehicles. Also, by having the property where a large volume of buses and students are located, this allows the school district to keep the number of bus locations to 3, which makes for a more efficient management of personnel and buses. And this slide here, if the school district were successful in acquiring these properties, what's our commitment to the neighborhood? There will be no servicing, no fueling, no maintenance of the buses. This is strictly to park buses. The buses will be parked in the rear of the property, near the railroad tracks, away from the street. There will be limited hours of operation, as noted on the screen. Weekdays only during the school year, with no weekend activities on the site. We will do our best to eliminate backup alerts to midday and at the conclusion of the day. Also, the idling of buses will be limited as per the district policy. There will be an attractive landscape buffer around the property with security fencing around the buses, and employee parking will be closer to the street, as currently is a situation with the current businesses in those locations. Employee parking will be available to the community for use during off hours.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you, and Pat and the administration for putting together this presentation. What we concludes our presentation, but we wanted to let you know that we want to continue the dialogue with the community and township and elected officials. I said earlier that this presentation is being broadcasted and available on our website, and additional information with regards to an FAQ will be posted as well. So I will pass off to Dr. Gilbert and see if there are any.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the administration for putting together the presentation. What I'd like to do now is offer board members opportunity to ask questions. What I'd like to do is have everybody sort of ask, just one question and then kind of move through again, so everybody gets the opportunity to everybody can ask as many as they want, but I just want everyone to have an opportunity. So I thought I might start at this end of the table. Ben, if there's any question.
Thank you very much. I guess on slide 6, there was a bullet point about reducing traffic congestion. And I guess I'm just trying to get some clarification about what that means. Is it, I guess, is it as simple as if a student's on a bus, that student's not in a car, therefore there's less car traffic? Is that kind of where we're going?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
Pat, is there any clarification besides that simple answer of a yes?
That's the intent. They're on the yellow list.
Pat, you need to come up.
Well, that's the intent of that information, is that if students are on a bus, then they're not in a car one by one and being driven by their parents to and from school.
But I guess Pat, I'm sorry to make, we will have some increased congestion of wherever the buses are as they exit, and ingress and egress. I guess that's
At the bus parking location, yes.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question on slide 7. It says that we're taking people to job placements and homework clubs. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, we have several job coaches in the district, and as part of our curriculum program, offer services for students who are on job placement. And we provide transportation for those students.
Also, thank you for the presentation, very comprehensive. I was looking through the sample questions from the community, and there was one that I came across that wasn't included. I know there have been several questions sent through. And something that was raised was with regard, and this would go to Mr. Ganan, I believe, and possibly Mr. Orlando, the outsourcing of our transportation services and that as a feasible or viable option for the district, and wondering if you could speak to that in terms of some of the issues that might arise with regard to that concern.
I'll start off, and I'd like to defer to Ken in that conversation. We are very proud of the services we provide within our employees in the district, and conversations around outsourcing some of our services is a bargained conversation, but I'll let Ken explain further about that process.
Certainly, thank you. Outsourcing of the extent that would be required to address this issue is not permissible under the collective bargaining agreement.
Can you just follow?
So we would need to bargain that as a concern, or I guess how do we best respond to the community when those kinds of questions get brought up?
Well,
Besides, we can't do
besides
it given where
well,
we are.
it would be an under the current collective bargaining agreement, it would be an unfair labor charge against the district. It would be constitute unless it could be bargained. That's not to say there isn't some limited amount of outsourcing that could occur, but outsourcing of the extent that would address the issue that you have would categorically violate the collective bargaining agreement and subject the district. I mean, you simply couldn't do it.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask if you could follow up on the second part, I think, which is more a question of, when you went over all the sort of strong aspects of our transportation department, these are our own employees, and we do training and all the rest of it. So I just thought maybe you could comment a little bit about the differences between having our own employees versus outsourcing, regardless of the bargaining issue.
Sure. As mentioned before in the previous slides, that we take great pride in our ability to provide services to our students with our own drivers. There are a handful of exceptions where there are opportunities present itself. But very similar to the other conversations we had around our ability to maintain the integrity of our fleet, and to ensure that the thousands of students who are being transported every single day throughout the district are transported with what we prefer to be our staff.
Mrs. Pollard?
It was said that in some of the school areas, there would be room for some buses, but it would outsize our staff and students. I was just wondering if you had thought about taking another property, i.e. like Annie says, and using that for students and faculty, and having a shuttle going back and forth at assigned times.
You're referring to student parking, say, at Lower Merion High School? No, we had not considered that.
Well, there are multiple scenarios in terms of, and we did not think about a shuttle service in terms of the location of the property, how many oftentimes the shuttle has to run, and faculty as well, so that displaces vehicles in a faraway location based on where they currently are on the property.
Has the administration given any thought to relocating district administration from this site to either the St. Justin's property or maybe even this Bell Avenue property, and use the office buildings for offices, and then opening up the administrative spaces to the high school?
No, that is not a scenario that that we looked at with regards to housing the administration building in another in another location. But that's something that we definitely will add to the list and part of the conversation today.
Great, thank you.
Jane, can I just ask for clarification from you? Would that you would then have to be able to put additional buses as well, right? At one
No,
location?
if you opened, if you
trying to think.
removed administration from this site, that would open up a significant number of parking spaces. There might also be a requirement to get some relief from the number of student parking spaces required by land development, but you know, that's a conversation I figure we can have with the commissioners. But the idea being, you know, if we move the administration off the site, do we open up enough spaces to accommodate the additional students we expect to see here?
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
I also want to follow up on Virginia and Diane's questions about this site and the legal restrictions. So I just want to clarify, maybe Pat or Ken can clarify. My understanding is, number one, we cannot have more buses here than we have, and number two, legally we have to provide student and visitor parking. Is that correct? So even if we wanted to eliminate student parking, we cannot legally, because we would be in violation of township law. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, and I've discussed this with the district's zoning attorney, and I believe that's his understanding as well. Student spaces are required.
So we'd have to get the township to change the law in order to be able to do that.
Or to either relax
Is
it,
it
either relax
a
its
law,
ordinance.
or is it a condition of approval for land development?
There is a township ordinance that says how many parking spaces are required at a school for staff, eligible students, and students of an eligible age, as well as visitors. And student parking is one of those things.
I also wanted to make a clarifying point with the administration, but first I wanted to acknowledge the fact that we are meeting with the commissioners, a delegation from the school board, and commissioners who I know are all here tonight, Brian McGuire, Cheryl Gelber, and Dan Bernheim, to talk about some of the issues and challenges that we're experiencing in terms of buses. I wanted to just clarify, will we have a chance, I think we're meeting again in a few weeks in early August, to further explore how we can work together to create maybe more solutions before any further decisions are made about Bala Avenue. Thanks. That was actually a question for the administration.
What was the statement? What was the question? I apologize.
Will we have a chance to take that conversation further down the road before we make any further decisions about buses?
That's a board decision,
Oh,
frankly,
okay.
than the administration. I mean, we would be able to
So we can decide.
decide that we were meeting with the commissioners and would be discussing that, yeah. I mean, I guess the administration could come
It's
to
a
us.
little bit
and-
of a timeline question, I guess.
Right, but the
Well,
meeting is in August.
Lori, I
5th,
mean,
correct?
we're trying to get a meeting set up first week of August with the commissioners. So, I mean, we have a few responses. I'm waiting for 2 more, but I would say I'm feeling very optimistic that with this, again, it's a non-binding meeting. It's just the school board and the commissioners and Narberth Council kind of sitting around the table hashing out ideas. And
A small number of delegates.
very small. We're not
We're
we
not
we
meeting
can't
outside
agree
of
to
sunshine.
anything. It's
Just wanna
non-binding.
clarify.
So it's more of just getting an understanding of where we see the issues, where the township sees the issues, where Narberth Council sees the issues. So I want to say, I think it's about 2 weeks. August 5th is around there. We're trying to get it scheduled. And I also do want to say, I mean, I know there's a lot, as has been said, there's a lot of emotion to this, and I don't dispute that for a minute. The meeting was very productive and very civil. I really can't thank the commissioners enough for coming to the table listening, trying to help us understand and work through. I mean, I wish you could have seen it, but it was very, very proactive and very, very friendly to move things forward. So I think we'll keep at it, and I think we'll get progress from that. So I do have a quick question. I think, Pat, you mentioned having parking for, I think they're called driver aids. Could you just, my apologies, I'm not sure what they do, or if you can give some explanations of that.
My test fits I tried to do at various school properties were based on using a minibus, which is our smallest bus, which of course then is easier to park and maneuver. However, most of the minibuses come not only with drivers, but they come with aides, and the aides are assigned for students with special needs. So I can't say that every minibus has an aide, but most do.
And Pat, and that accounts for the additional parking spaces that we may need as well. So when you count the driver, you count the aide
Correct.
as well that supports that bus and those students.
Right. For example, at Belmont Hills, I talked about being able to park 4 minibuses. We would displace existing parking, 13 spaces. But we also generate a requirement for 4 buses times 2 people, or 8, for a total of 21, that would then be parking off-site.
Have we gotten an estimate on the cost of the Matson Ford parking structure, if we go forward with that?
No, we have not. We're in preliminary conversations with our consultants to give us a sense of the feasibility of that.
Thank you.
I had a question regarding just some clarification on timeline. On the bus parking overview, property must be identified and secured by August 2015. Just some general clarification in terms of what the timeline would be in terms of getting a property ready for bus parking for the fall of 2016 school year.
Pat, can you answer that? I know that I talked briefly about some of the logistics, but that's your area in terms of from the design to the bidding process, the construction process, and getting prepared. What does that look like in a traditional project like this?
The timeline we've laid out is that our desire is to secure the property by this time next year. That would basically give us 12 months to get it ready. During the 12 months, you have to complete whatever acquisition there is. You have to go forward to apply for any approvals you might need. Certainly land development approval, there might be some zoning variances. At the same time, you'll be doing design work. And eventually, all that stuff comes together, and then the project gets bid out and then awarded. Then there's permitting, et cetera. So we're asking for 12 months in order to be able to do all that and to get the property ready. That would include the construction time. So could it be done faster than that? Yes, but I would rather plan on 12 months at this point.
I'd like to actually ask a question. When the administration recommended the Bala properties for the reasons that you outlined here, you had spoken with the township staff who had suggested to go to commercially zoned properties because other properties we had looked at required either support of the township commissioners or the zoning board. I realize those are different things. And so, you were looking for a solution that was something we could do, without having to get those kinds of that kind of support, since buses have been an issue for a long time, and we thought that was probably the way to go. Now we've talked to some of the commissioners. The commissioners do not represent. They've made it very clear that they don't represent the entire Board of Commissioners, so I realize that. But I guess my question is, the kinds of things that we're talking about, building a parking deck at Lower Merion High School, getting rid of student parking at Lower Merion High School, and then getting, conditions of approval lifted so you could potentially put more buses there, or maybe getting rid of parking at both high schools, putting more buses at Harriton, and putting, more staff parking at Lower Merion. Matson Ford Road requires support from, I'm not exactly sure if it's the commissioners or the zoning. I mean, these all have, would require support. So I guess my question is, if we were able to get support, what would your sort of main recommendation be? And if you can't answer that now, I guess I would ask you to look at that and to say, well, we are talking to the commissioners at this point, and if we could all wave our magic wand and not have a lot of the restrictions that we have, what would be the administration's recommendation at that point?
Well, since you're asking for me to make a wish,
Well, I mean, okay, realistic, a little bit realistic.
then I think that in conversations with Pat and with Vic about, as I dive headfirst into parking and construction for the first time, that when you take a look at the number of buses we have in a large fleet and the services that we provide, that obviously, ideally, we would love to have one location where we can park all of our buses, and we know that that's not a realistic possibility. But I will modify the wish and say that if we talked about relief and we talked about support, we had the conversation that we would like to take a look at some of our properties and see whether or not we can provide through our conversation, our elected officials, through our commissioners, and obviously zoning, and we talked about two different entities, to take a look at whether or not we could park buses and allow permission for additional parking on some of our properties where that is feasible. So modified, we'd love to use and look at an existing property. It sits closer, obviously, to home in terms of the way in which it could afford us the opportunity to do all the things that we were talking about earlier. But that's really going to require collaboration and support, both from the board and from our elected officials and commissioners to brainstorm on some of those ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so while we went through land development at Welsh Valley, we had an expectation that we weren't going to need any additional bus parking. And so we said at the time that we did not anticipate putting any buses on that site. Things have changed, and one might argue, well, could you have anticipated that? And I guess it's possible. But the issue is if enrollments continue to grow, then we're going to need additional bus parking. And so if we went to Welsh Valley, how much space do we have there? How many buses could we put there? You talked about 54 spaces. I'm wondering whether that was required by zoning or land development. Is there more space that we could use at Welsh Valley to put some of the buses there? So I guess I'd like to explore a little more fully. Yes, I know that we, at the time, didn't think we were going to need the to park any buses there, but if we did have to park them there, what are the possibilities?
Thank you for the question. And you're right, I agree that with your statement that obviously times have changed in terms of that process. I want to say that and reiterate that previous administration was extremely committed, and as I look at the rationale behind that, the flexibility that the Walsh Valley property affords us to support our curricular programs is like no place else on within the district in terms of our property. And though we've had conversations, and I'll ask Pat to speak a little bit more about what that could possibly look like, and we'll get more information. We wanted that flexibility to support our programs, to support our professional development opportunities within that building. But Pat, was there a conversation we had about preliminarily about the feasibility of what could that look like? Will that impact the church? Will that impact the playing fields if we looked at the size and how many buses we can put on there?
We did take a look at some of that. I don't have the information with me tonight, so I'd prefer to get back to you later with that information.
That's great, thank you. Dr. Mercier, just to follow up on what you said about the professional development opportunities and things that we want to use that space for, I would argue that we'd have a much easier time finding a temporary spot to have a couple of meetings than a permanent spot for the buses. So if that's, you know, I just think that while that's in an ideal world, clearly we're not living in that wonderful world.
I'd just like to ask one more question. I realize there are a lot of people who want to have an opportunity to comment, so I'll try to limit it. So one of the properties that you didn't mention in your presentation, Vic, was the food source property that's for sale. And I understand that that's Haverford Township, but what I'm wondering is that zoned commercial or industrial, or could we legally, if we purchase that park buses area, would we need Haverford Township to give us some kind of approval to be able to do that?
That wasn't one of the properties that we had on this presentation. So I'd have to go back and look and see that prior. I know it is not located in the township. I'd have to look and see exactly what it's zoned and whether or not there would have to be some concessions by that township to allow that.
Because if we didn't need concessions, would that be a possibility?
Could be. We haven't explored the size of it and dimensions of it, so that's something we would have to explore.
And if we were to use that property, would we have to pay property taxes to Haverford Township?
So I'm clear about the question. You're saying if you were successful in acquiring a property in another township where you used it for school district purposes, no. If you owned it, you shouldn't be responsible to pay. It would not be on the tax rolls. You would not be responsible for real property taxes.
But we would be responsible for their zoning and land development and all that other stuff.
You're responsible for that whether you buy within or outside of the township.
No, I think we should move on to the community.
Okay, appreciate you don't have any other questions. I need to check if other people have questions at this time. So I have one question, though. I do have one question, which is around the Welsh Valley, because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that that space is being talked about now, meaning the church area for professional development, but that when you talk about the long-term flexibility, you're talking about classroom space if the enrollments go up. Am I correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understand that, because
I know that the professional development space, in terms of Diane's argument, but there were previous administration in discussing the importance of that property and the flexibility of that property, both to support our current enrollment growth and the need for having that space for that possible expansion and other curricular events that took place. And though maybe a lot more easier to find professional development space, it was part of the conversation.
I just remember from when we were looking at what we might do to deal with the current growth, there was one point before we decided to build additions at Gladwin and Penn Valley, was the idea of using that space for a kindergarten center to be able to pull out some of the kindergarten students and thereby increase classroom space for 1 through 5 at some of the elementary schools. And we didn't do that for reasons I won't go into here, but I thought that was more the kinds of issues you were talking about.
Yeah, Melissa, I just want to follow up with that. I mean, by using the 54 spaces that are now set aside for West Valley and building the athletic field, I'm not sure that the designs that we saw for possible classroom use of that building are, I don't think they're no longer feasible.
No, I understand. Sorry, I understand that. I was just trying to get a sense of what the conversation was prior around those facilities issues. Okay, at this time, what I'd like to do is first ask, because this is the time where if someone wants to speak to any agenda item so that they can be heard before we vote on agenda items, and there's no agenda item tonight other than the presentation on the bus properties, but there are other kinds of things we're voting on. So I would like to ask that is there anyone who would like to speak to an agenda item that's not about the buses, so that you don't have to stay the entire time if you want. There's usually maybe one person or two. That if you could come up and sign up with Ms. LaPera right now, and we'll allow you to go first. So this is if you have an agenda item you'd like to speak about that's not related to the buses. Is there anyone who's in that situation? No. I said exactly what I was trying to say is there is no vote on the bus issue this evening, but it's on the agenda as a presentation. So I was trying, yes, that's not what I was trying to say. So
For example, we'll be formally voting to approve the new assistant principal who just visited us.
So I'm saying if
so
there's
someone wants to talk about that.
Okay. So is there anybody who would like to speak on an agenda item that's not related to the buses? Well, you can please come up now. Is there anyone in that situation? Okay. Then what I would like for people to do now, I think some people have already signed up, but if you have not signed up, can you please, if you would like to speak during this portion, please come up and sign up now. If you want to speak at the end, there'll be another opportunity, but if you want to speak up now and you haven't signed up, please come and sign up. Sure. We've not done that, no. We don't do
You can't
that.
do that. You can't do that. That would entitle one member for more community input than other members. It's not appropriate unless you're looking at Parliament.
Yeah, we've not allowed that in the past, actually. So you're allowed to speak for 3 minutes. You need to come up and say your name and where you live. You don't need to give your address. You can just, the community you live in. And then you'll have the 3-minute limit. Thank you, Diane, for reminding me. You actually need to be a resident of the Lower Merion School District in order to be able to speak. So that's important to note. Actually, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take all of the questions, and then at the end of the questions, if the administration feels like there's some things that they might clarify, they'll attempt to do that. Otherwise, what we're going to do is keep a list of the ongoing questions and incorporate them into an FAQ that we're going to do and as quickly as possible. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate.
Yeah, so we're going to read off the names, and I think since there's a number of people here, we're going to maybe read off 5 names, and for people to come up and wait and turn here so there's less time for people to come.
Okay, we have Roger Moog, Chris Prendergast, Rich Friedman, Dr. William Duffy, and Mr. Foley, Terrence Foley.
Good evening, board members. My name is Roger Moog. I live at 301 Kent Road in Bala Cynwyd. I'm a board member of the Neighborhood Club and a past president of the Neighborhood Club. I'm also a retired transportation engineer. Although we've heard some reasons why some people think the Bala site is a good site to park buses, the community has raised a number of reasons why they believe it is a very bad site to park buses. My message and my opinion is a professional one as a traffic engineer, and it essentially is that unmanageable traffic congestion is coming to eastern Lower Marion Township. And the roads include City Avenue, Bala Avenue, Montgomery Avenue, Lancaster Avenue, Conshohocken State Road, Belmont Avenue, Monument Road, Presidential Boulevard, St. Asaph's Road, among other roads. Why do I think this? I was involved for 2 years in the City Avenue Transportation Services Area Committee that studied the impacts of changing zoning along City Avenue and Bala Avenue on traffic and transportation in the community. We studied two things, to simplify it. Development potential of zoning, how much new development is going to occur. We found about 200% increase in square footage of development along City Avenue, and some increase is expected along Bala Avenue as well, and about a 30 to 50% increase in traffic in the next 25 years on all those roads that I just mentioned. We also studied what projects needed to be done to deal with this additional traffic and what the cost of those projects would be, and it's predominantly highways and roadways. We found out there would be numerous projects that might help. No guarantee, I'm afraid, but they're going in the right direction, and over $17 million of cost over that 25-year period to improve the roadways. The problem is that that money will likely not be available. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission just released its 2040 systems plan. Only 30% of the needed money for the 5 counties, Montgomery, Bucks, Delaware, Bucks, Camden, Delaware, and Philadelphia County, only 30% of the funding will be available from the state and federal government. 5% of that 30% is going to go for expansion of roadways. The rest goes predominantly for bridges. So there's no money. The outlook for more traffic congestion is definite. It's bad now, and it's going to get worse. Adding buses to that mix is only going to make things worse, and it's going to increase the gridlock, some of which we already have. And if you can imagine a school bus going up Bala Avenue and a passenger car trying to come down that road, it doesn't work. And so, especially when these buses, as we have seen in the school presentation, are operating during rush hours. So I think I have no time remaining. Thank you for your generous time.
Thank you, Mr. Moog.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Chris Prendergast, president of the Penn Valley Civic Association. Once again, the Penn Valley Civic Association stands before the school board and publicly opposes the use of residential areas in Penn Valley for parking a bus fleet, this time at the Welsh Valley Justin Martyr Complex. While this site has been advocated as a low-cost alternative to the purchase of commercial property in the township, it would dramatically change the character of a residential, calm neighborhood and stress an already problematic intersection at Tara Lane and Hagees Ford Road. We remind the board of the legal precedent set supporting Penn Valley residents who wished to preserve the residential character of their neighborhood from these buses in 2007-8. As such, we note the school district is subject to township zoning restrictions and should not seek variances when viable alternatives exist in commercial areas of the township. We hope that you will weigh the effects of heavy bus traffic on the character of all neighborhoods under consideration as parking depot for this fleet. And note that Bala Cynwyd is not alone in wanting a neighborhood with safe, walkable streets and a business district with viable commercial interests. I'll also add that Bala-Cynwyd's not alone in experiencing increased traffic congestion. We certainly are subject to that in Penn Valley as well, specifically along Hays Ford Road. Further, we urge the board to consider alternatives that increase walkability of schools and neighborhoods and reduce reliance on buses and automotive transportation to get to and from school. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Yes, I'm Richard Friedman. I'm from Bala-Cynwyd. I live on Bala Avenue, and first of all, I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. I found it very difficult to understand why all of this information about all of this work on putting a bus depot on Bala Avenue didn't come to light until fairly recently. You people have been working on it for quite a while, I assume. 1999, you started working on bus problems. That's 15 years. I would think you'd have more of a grasp of what you would need to do. I feel like the schools, we redid this school 3 years ago. There was a lot of construction, a lot of opportunity to face these problems. People said they felt that the schools were going to be less crowded as a result of the expansion of the high schools and the fact that they thought that the community was shrinking. Now the charts show us that it's not. Yes, things do change, but you have to consider, if you're going to put a bus depot on Bala Avenue, the impact to the people that live on Bala Avenue, not just the fact that we've invested a tremendous amount of money in streetscaping and other improvements to the street to make it a more friendly neighborhood for people to walk and to shop. That's only the one side of the street. The other side of the street is all housing and people's homes, and the traffic already is pretty intense, and I feel that you need to find another solution, and a more creative one. One of the things that I think has not been looked into is there should be a way to stack the buses in parking them. I visited a dealership for a car dealership in our neighborhood, and I noticed that all of their cars are parked inside, and they're parked to the space with a system that allows you to pull the car out and bring the car that's above down via a pneumatic system. Now that's a creative solution to their problem of trying to park a lot of cars in a small space. I believe there have to be solutions to parking buses in a smaller space that we could investigate. I don't believe we've looked into that enough to find a more creative solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the time allowing me to speak. My name is Dr. William Duffy. I am a 38-year resident of Bala-Cynwyd on Bryn Mawr Avenue, 300 block. During that time, we have watched Bala Avenue go up and down in terms of shopping, availability for consumer use to make the area better. It is now coming on the way back up, yet the school board is looking at putting a dagger in the heart of that project. You're looking to put busing in a residential area, blocking that area during times when people are going to be trying to get in and out, especially in the afternoons. The next point I have is that I am a retired public school administrator. I worked in the Westchester area school district. I was a principal at Henderson High School. At that time, seniors were the only ones that were permitted to park on school property, and that was done by a lottery. Maybe that is a possibility and something that should be considered to lessen the number of parking places, because it could be a senior privilege. Secondly and finally, with all due respect to the solicitor, Westchester Area School District, a district of 12,000 students, outsources their busing. Was it easy? No. You have collective bargaining agreements. They are collective bargaining agreements. It is a bargaining proposition. They were able to work out with their unions to outsource busing and, in addition, outsource food services. So those are two things that possibly could be looked at with the district. Is it easy? No. Is it congenial? Certainly not. You're talking about people's jobs. But it is a possibility when we're looking at, number one, ever increasing school district taxes. I'm almost finished. School district taxes. It is a way to keep down the taxes. It is also a way to resolve the busing issue forever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Jenkins, Rose Sirota, Amara Briggs, Barry Polis, and Jay Joseph.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Ruth Jenkins, Rosa Sirota, Amara Briggs, Barry Polis, and Jay Joseph.
Okay, sir, can you repeat your name as well? I
Sure.
didn't catch it.
Good evening. I'm Terrence Foley. I'm the president of the City Avenue Special Services District.
Oh, okay.
The district is a unique partnership between the City of Philadelphia and the Township of Lower Merion. It stretches along the City Avenue corridor from the Expressway to Wynwood Road, and it includes Ballard Avenue from City Avenue to Montgomery Avenue. Our objectives are to improve public safety, enhance the area's image, and attract and shape development. The district works with businesses, property owners, developers, and residents to shape the future of the area, including Ballard Avenue. Nearly $4 million in streetscape improvements have been completed over the last 5 years, including $1.5 million on Ballard Avenue between City and Montgomery. We have another $10 million improvements planned over the next 5 years, including Ballard Avenue. What's our vision for Ballard Avenue? We want to reestablish it as the community's main street. We want to encourage pedestrian-oriented development and redevelopment. We want to make these parcels more economically viable while preserving the special character of the early 20th century Ballard shopping district. We want to see buildings built closer to the street with parking in the rear. We want lively streetscape with increased retail activity. We want a safe and inviting environment for pedestrians. And we want to discourage auto-oriented uses that detract from the pedestrian experience. To support this vision, the district has followed through on the recommendations made in the Ballard Avenue Master Plan. We want to provide safety improvements and pedestrian enhancements in order to create a better place to live, shop, and work, and to improve access to the Kinwood Rail Line and the Kinwood Trail. We've done this by providing new pedestrian lighting on Ballard Avenue. We've installed textured crosswalks. We've put in ADA-compliant curb ramps. We've replaced a traffic signal that was disobeyed often with a four-way stop, where people have to stop now for pedestrians to get across the street. It also serves to provide traffic calming. And we've also changed the signal at City and Ballard to add pedestrian buttons and indicators. So in summary, it is important that we continue the effort to achieve this vision for Ballard Avenue as a pedestrian-oriented environment that discourages auto-oriented uses, therefore making this commercial corridor a safer and more attractive destination. The recent traffic and pedestrian improvements were a first step towards achieving this vision, and future redevelopment should continue to bring about further positive changes to the corridor. Obviously, the parking of school buses on this corridor is not part of this vision. I ask that you please reconsider your plan to park buses on Ballard Avenue. And one last note, I noticed on one of the slides that you recognize split zoning between commercial and residential, but you did not do it on the Ballard Avenue site. That is split zoning. It is partially residential and partially commercial. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruth Jenkins. I live at 354 Worcester Road, right here next to the high school. Based on decisions the board supposedly made with transparency, we now have one overcrowded high school with parking, traffic, and bus issues. We have spent millions of dollars to build two beautiful and equal high schools. We are now spending millions to renovate the administration building and all the other schools and middle schools. Harridan is now below capacity, while Lower Merion is overcrowded and will continue to be so. The undoing of the walk zone was done without forethought to the crisis it would cause. I have lived on Worcester Road for 30 years, one street from Lower Merion High School. We've dealt with the buses for all that time. Students, parents, speed down Worcester, Hamilton, and Owen with little regard to pedestrians. Student driving is a challenge, and it really requires more students getting on buses and less students driving. According to previous meetings that I have attended, the administration building was supposed to move the staff to an off-site location, leaving spaces for appropriate parking. This was brought up during the time that the renovation concept was brought up as far as the administration building is concerned. This is a community issue, and the township needs to work together to solve it. If we leave it up to the school board, you may not know what is going on until it is too late.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Rosa Sirota Winwood. Good evening, school directors, district staff, and residents. The current situation is a result of members of this board not following the CAC recommendation approved by a previous board. Your decision results in an imbalance in student population at our high schools, with pending overcrowding at Lower Merion High School in September. Could be actually 1,100 students at Harriton and over 400 at Lower Merion. Equal-sized high schools were constructed at a considerable expense to our community. Therefore, I cannot support the decision of additional funds to purchase a bus site in Bala-Cynwyd or other areas of our township. So where do we go from here? Again, it is your decision, in hopes that it will be an informed, practical, and wise decision. I suggest that in October, each of you visit all of our school sites when buses arrive and leave with our students at the end of the school day. This could provide you with an opportunity to assess the impact on each school neighborhood firsthand. I suggest that our commissioners do also. In an aside, last September, on Lower Merion High School site, student parking was considerably decreased. I know that, because at the end of October, I called the district and wondered why students were parked all over the streets from one side of the corner to the other. And I was told that additional parking placards would be distributed. Why was that at the end of October? Students continue to park in the neighborhood. In fact, I asked the little girl, I said, aren't you going to get a ticket coming in and out of the school? And she said, well, they allow us to sign in and sign out. This concerns me because it is not in keeping with recognizing the intent of the law. It seems like that an educational facility should not be enabling students to disregard the intent of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Who are the next people?
Amara Briggs.
Dr. J. Joseph, just like to make a brief few remarks. I live on Colwyn Lane in Bala-Cynwyd for the last 50 years, and I am very close to the bus depot site that's being considered. I just want to reemphasize a couple points that have been made already and at some of our meetings that we've held. The safety factor. We're talking about a playground adjoining essentially the bus depot. Children are there early in the morning, middle of the day, and late at night, if any of you are familiar with that particular area. To have approximately 120 bus trips going back and forth, 30 leaving in the morning, 30 returning in the morning, 30 leaving in the afternoon, 30 returning in the afternoon, 30 leaving at night, 30 returning at night, with the anywhere between 30 and 60 additional cars coming and going frequently, depending on whether their advisors are on the buses, is a safety factor of concern. They also mentioned that the noise would be dampened. I don't know how many of you have a bus driving by your home at 6:45 in the morning. I can assure you I do not need an alarm clock as the bus goes down Colwyn Lane 6:45 every morning. I know it's necessary, but I would feel sorry for the people who live on Bell Avenue who have to experience this at that great extent. And finally, and it's already been mentioned by several of the speakers, the congestion is essentially unbearable. How can you have anywhere between 30 buses going back and forth multiple times each day, anywhere between 30 cars and 60 cars, approximately 360 additional traffic volume hitting Montgomery Avenue or City Line every single day, in the range of 1,500 additional cars going to City Avenue or Montgomery Avenue every single day. I think that's a safety hazard that must be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
I better get up here before someone else takes my spot again. Good evening. My name is Amara Briggs, and I'm the president of the Neighborhood Club of Bala Cynwyd. I really appreciate all the discussion tonight by the board and staff on the different alternatives. But what's really clear to me tonight is there really is many more alternatives to Bala Avenue. And on behalf of our club and the almost 1,500 people who signed our petition, I ask that you abandon all plans to put a bus depot on Bala Avenue. Withdraw your letters of intent and continue your open dialogue with our community. I want to talk a little bit about what I first learned that the district had issued letters of intent to purchase property on Bala Avenue. Melissa called me to inform me before Memorial Day weekend that this district had issued letters of intent for properties on 1517 and 1719 Bala Avenue. For those of you unfamiliar with our community, this is an area on Bala Avenue about a half a block from the Bala Avenue playground between Union and City Avenues. I learned these were private properties and that the current use of a bus depot does not conflict with current zoning code. Moreover, they are not for sale. Dr. Gilbert said talks were in an early stage, and it was the school board's intention to engage the greater community once talks and negotiations had advanced. She also stated that the board had met with township staff and our George Manos, the commissioner. As a result, the board was looking at ways to provide buffers to the neighborhood and to perhaps repurpose the lot during the day to ensure that the property blended with the community. I was taken aback, frankly, that the board would seriously consider Bala Avenue as a place for a bus depot. I told Melissa that engaging the community further on negotiations was far too late. What if the seller accepted the LOIs and agreement of sale was negotiated? I told her a buffer and a building, while nice, was hardly solved the community's issue with the purchase. The concerns were much broader. A bus depot in this section was not consistent with our community's vision as a mixed-use community for residents and small merchants. I voiced concern about traffic flow onto City Avenue, noise, safety, and smell. There are 12 homes directly across from the proposed site. I asked about alternative sites, namely Rock Hill Road, and Dr. Gilbert communicated that this had been reviewed for several years and had been considered. It appeared to me that the board had settled on a final site. Finally, I would just ask tonight, I know that there were many questions to ask. I would ask that you please consider questions around fiscal responsibility, fiscal cost. We did not hear any numbers tonight, so I'd like to hear some more about that for purchasing, for relocation, et cetera. I'd like to understand what the budget is for the bus depot and the process of obtaining said funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Amara.
Thank you.
Lisa Littman, John Malley, James Oswald, Judy Friedman, and David Haas, maybe? I'm sorry.
My name is Barry Polis. I live at 32 Bala Avenue. I'm a real estate broker, 40 years experience in the real estate business, 3 states, background in construction and management. We really do not need a bus depot at all. According to your letter of June 30th, 2014, the problem is staff, student, and visitor parking. So we need to solve staff, student, and visitor parking. We already have 2 bus locations, one at each high school right now. So really the problem is vehicle parking, not bus parking. You also state that you want to find the most cost-effective solution. Certainly, vehicle parking is much easier than bus parking. When you review the parking structure rejection argument, being inconvenienced for 1 year, that's really an invalid rejection. With building a parking garage at both schools, let's say, there's no real estate tax loss, there's no long-term community damage. You create jobs instead of causing jobs to go away. You improve the assets of Lower Merion and Harriton, and there's no damages to businesses, retail, and residential community. Shuttling cars is a solution. Lancaster Avenue has numerous locations, as well as Staples, for instance, and Annie Says. There's no consideration to the damage done by School Bus Depot in a neighborhood. You haven't done an analysis on that, and I think that that's essential before you move forward with anything of that nature. Also, Richard Friedman said more effective use of parking the cars is something that should be explored as opposed to just more effective use of parking the buses. It seems that Philadelphia is able to avoid out us using them industrial locations there for parking our buses, whereas we as Lower Merion are not able to void out the possibility of using our properties. And Philadelphia has numerous locations for international trucking locations, for instance. There's been no advertisements, no internet posting, no canvassing of other locations. You put up the sites that you have reviewed for a second, that should be posted publicly. We were really not able to see that, so we couldn't see the other alternatives. There's not been a professional analysis of where the buses would be best used, and there hasn't been a study regarding the immediate effects of bus depots on real estate. So the most cost-effective solution would be dealing with vehicle parking as opposed to bus parking. I guess I'm running out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Paulos.
That leaves us with Lisa Littman. You're next. Lisa?
Members of the board, neighbors and friends, my name is Lisa Littman. I live in Bala-Cynwyd. I am vehemently opposed to there being a bus depot on Bala Avenue, and I am sorry that we didn't get a chance to meet in the fall when perhaps more people could attend this meeting. In addition to the safety issues and the traffic issues, it really is an emotional issue. I live in a hard-working, vibrant community where the township has instituted many improvements like the lights and the bike trail, and there are terrific businesses up the street. And I believe that the bus depot would destroy the character of this neighborhood. It would negatively impact our quality of life with the noise, the traffic, the fumes, even with the newer buses and fuels, and terrible crowding. It would decrease our property values, which we work so hard to maintain. This is already a very narrow street. We have to be careful with cars having their mirrors knocked off. There's very little room for these buses coming up and down Bala Avenue, and we all know City Avenue is a mess. When there is snow, parking is almost impossible. Even though the streets are plowed, there are huge drifts. There's no place to park. Cars are trapped, and I can't imagine how this is going to work. You can barely get one car down the street, let alone buses in either direction. I don't really understand why students need between 99 and 240 parking spaces. That's what the buses are for. Let's teach our children to respect the environment and work together to avoid this kind of entitled individual parking at the school property. I'd like to thank you for examining so many other properties, but I'd like to say your search is not over. I'd like you to consider less expensive and certainly less offensive options. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you. Can we have the next speaker? Do we know who they are? Do you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
My name's John Maley. I live at 15 Cornell Road, right behind Rock Hill Road. We had this fight once before. Oh, by the way, Doctor, welcome to our happy home.
Thank you, John.
I don't know if you want to stay after this meeting. But
I'm an Olympic track athlete, so I think I will bet on the fact that I'll probably beat everyone out this door.
just remember, I don't have to run faster than the bear, I just have to run faster than you. But anyway, we had this discussion once before when a commissioner from one of my friends in the commissioner decided that the buses should be on Rock Hill Road, they should rent the O'Brien property. And I explained to her, you can't get the buses out of there at 6:30 in the morning. That's number one, because of the traffic. You go to Bala Avenue, you can't get the buses out of there at 6:30 and 7 in the morning. Now, I see some heads going, oh, hell yes, I can. Yes, you can, but you're going to have a police officer there directing traffic. By the way, Union Avenue Bridge is, correct me if I'm wrong, George, is scheduled to be torn down, so that eliminates another venue of getting out. BMW is there, and they're building to expand their business. So it is not a good idea. I drove up here, I saw the buses here. They're parked, they're secure, they're nice. I drove by Harron. I was there when a lady complained that the buses were so ugly at the yellow she could see them through her trees. You know, and my wife's comment to her was, put up drapes. Don't play games with this. It's going to aggravate everybody. As some members on this board have heard from me, the little cherubs that want to drive to school should pay for the privilege. I think about $200 a semester, because that's what it costs if they take their cars to college. And as the good doctor pointed out, bus transportation to after-school jobs is provided by the township where it's connected with the school. So they don't need a car. We provide transportation. One other point I'd like to point out, at St. Margaret's, when you had the list there of where you provide bus transport, St. Margaret's doesn't get any bus transport. Their students either walk to work or the parents drop them off. But again, it's an elementary school, so you don't have to worry about the bus. Or you don't have to worry about parking. But, you know, I will go to the next meeting of the commissioners and explain that the children need to take the bus. They don't need to drive the car. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
James
Next
Oswald.
speaker, come up.
I'm James Oswald. I live in Kenwood Village and speak to honor neighboring Bala Village. All our Lower Merion villages and towns are nice places to live. Our township's been working many years to enhance life quality and has been carrying out a major improvement plan in Bala. Into this benign ambiance, an unfortunate abuse of power seems to have appeared by surprise. The facts and legalities are well known. I won't bore you because I agree with most of the speakers already. I welcome Dr. Marseille, and I was in his role about 40 years ago, and the lady who ran the buses in that town 50 miles north, one morning, shot her boyfriend, and he shot her, and the sheriff said, Dr. Oswald, you're running the buses. I got out of that career, came to Lower Merion, and here we are again. Hope you have a better luck. I have a lot of military background, and I'm watching the news And the one thing I can say that's different from what others are saying, it's a great place. You've worked hard. The solution will be reached. I believe every child who can should walk to school. And I believe the school buses should be as near as possible to the school. And in an emergency, I would ask everybody to think, in an emergency, a real emergency like we see on TV, where would we want our school buses? And it could be that reflecting on that question would lead us to some solution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I first want to offer my condolences to the family of the Valentines. It only elevates my concerns about traffic safety, about pedestrian safety. I'm from Bala-Cynwyd. I work in Bala-Cynwyd. I manage a practice called Expert Business Development.
Can you just tell us your name? I'm sorry.
Judy Friedman. Thank you. So I work in this community. I live in this community. I live at 36 Bala Avenue, a block away from the proposed bus station. My children grew up here. They played at the playground across the street. They played at the gymnasium across the street. They went to the movie theater and worked at the movie theater another block up the street. This is my community. It's not just black and white squares on a board. It's flesh and blood, and our children and our lives are on the line here in terms of our safety. Please consider this when you think about Bala-Cynwyd and what's best for my home, for my community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Marty Solomon, Meryl Zucker, Marcos Salagnikoff, and Michael Matza. Daniel Powell.
I'm David Haas. I live in Bala-Cynwyd. I serve on the board of the neighborhood club, and I'm not going to repeat a lot of what's already been said. I commend Diane de Bonaventura's questions and comments because I thought they really pointed to in my view, an issue of process here, of thought being put into something before a decision's made, and what belies what's been presented to us as a process is what Amara Briggs described as the first step before we heard about all this, which was letters of intent presented to a property or two property owners as essentially a fait accompli. This was a decision the school district apparently had made, otherwise they wouldn't have presented letters of intent to property owners. So I would contend that the process is actually backwards and that we ought to start from scratch. I think that the notion that you've heard from people that planning had gone into two equal schools for the high schools, which hasn't borne out, and then to hear Dr. Marseille speak to the district's interest in the future curricular possibilities of the Welsh Valley School property and an acquisition of that property, to me is scary because when we hear that there already have been plans for particular use and they can't seem to get that right, now we're facing a problem with buses. We need them someplace. Apparently, what's implied, I guess, is there'll be more buses because buses, wasn't clear from the report whether the buses were just going to be moved around or whether they're actually going to be in additional buses. But the reality is what we're facing, and I think Diane's point was right. We have a different reality than what may have been expected or hoped for, and I think we have limitations that need to be considered in that regard. My last question is the criteria that went into the decision of Bala Avenue. One of the points was a property in Lower Merion Township. Why? There's no necessity that that be the case, and properties are available, as was pointed out, in the city, in neighboring communities. And in our township, this is a double, what you're presenting at Bala Avenue is a double whammy for taxpayers. It's the opportunity to spend a lot of money on what would be an expensive commercial property, and take that property, which is a commercial property, off the tax rolls so it will never again, if it's owned by the school district, generate any revenue. I think that deserves a second look.
Thank you.
Marty Solomon.
Hi, I'm Marty Solomon, and I have a retail business on Bala Avenue. I've been there for 30 years. I've seen the avenue, many ups and downs of the avenue, but in the last few years, with the help of the City Avenue Special Services District, we've seen streetscapes and improvements to the area. Because of the streetscapes, one of their intentions was to put these bump outs in there to slow traffic down. Great idea, it slows the traffic down, but when you have two buses passing each other or a Coca-Cola truck and cars trying, it just doesn't work. I'm concerned about the traffic issues. We already have traffic issues, and then we also have the idea that there's going to be some spillover, I believe, for the people that are driving these buses that are going to be parking on Bala Avenue as well. I just don't think it works.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm delighted that you've given us this opportunity to speak this evening. Though I'm not wearing one that you can see, I'm here wearing two hats. One as a devoted member of the Neighborhood Club of Bala Cynwyd, and the second as president of the Fairmont Condominium in Bala Cynwyd on St. Asaph's Road. We have a building...
I'm sorry, can you just say your name? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
I didn't catch your
Merle
name.
Zucker, Z-U-C-K-E-R. We have 150 seniors living in our building who love to walk around, enjoy the neighborhood, walk to Bala Avenue, go to the movies, go to the nail manicurist, have dinner, enjoy the fact that the street is delightful to see and wonderful to use when we want to use it. We're worried about our taxes. We're worried about the fact that many of us are on fixed incomes. We have not heard what this whole project is costing. If this is going to mean our taxes are going to be raised, you're going to hear us all, 150 of us at the Fairmont, complaining. And I think this is something that has to be looked at very, very carefully. It's important for you to consider all the aspects of how this will impact Bala Cynwyd area. I know there are other things that you can do, and we look forward to your finding that option and that solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, hi, I'm Dr. Marco Salganikoff from Bala Cynwyd. Good afternoon, school board members and fellow township members. First of all, I'd like to say that it directly is a responsibility of the school board here that we have this problem due to the fact that you've made the district so attractive that enrollments continue to go up by attracting the students. So it really is your fault. No, but we do have a great school district and we have demand issues. What I wanted to talk about was, I said I was a doctor. I'm actually a doctor of computer science, I'm a doctor in computer science. And way back in my days in grad school, I took a course in network theory. And there's a reason that airlines like US Air put hubs near big cities, and it has to do with operational efficiencies. So if you think about where you're going to put your buses, and you think about what's called a hub and a star network, what you want to do is you want to put your hub, which is where you park your buses, nearest to your largest facilities and central to your population. And I think if you look at where Lower Merion High School is, basically that's one of the largest facilities, the largest student population. And if you look at the actual amount of miles that are run by the buses, you look at fuel costs, you look at hours spent by bus drivers, you'll see that it doesn't make sense to put a school bus depot at the periphery of where the highest density structures are from an operational standpoint. So that's, I think, something you need to think about in your operating costs, your fuel costs year after year. It's not just the however many $1 million up front, but it's the wear and tear on the buses, and it's the fuel costs, et cetera. The other thing I'd like to talk about is, you know, Thomas Pynchon says if you ask the wrong, you can get people to ask the wrong questions, then the answers don't matter. And what I want to talk about is, first of all, the scope of services for transportation. I'd like to understand all the different transportation services that are being provided. What of those are mandated versus which of those are, let's say, extensions, optional services, and really, what is the minimum viable services that we need to have, really as a baseline? How much of the transportation service do we have that are mandated versus how much are optional? And then let's look at that, especially with increasing enrollments. Do we need to look at the scope of our transportation services if there's flexibility there? And I think finally I'd like to say again, you know, let's look at sites potentially at the outside of the district if that makes sense. It may not be the most efficient, but I think we need to look at most options as possible. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Michael Matza. I bought my house in Bala Cynwyd in 1990. I'd like to add my voice to the overwhelming opposition you've heard here tonight. As has been noted, this flies in the face of the master plan to revitalize Bala Avenue Business District. We've seen the Cynwyd Bike Trail has been a wonderful addition. This new street lighting has been a wonderful addition. The Cynwyd Station Coffee Shop has been a wonderful addition. This neighborhood is in the middle of a hard-fought battle to improve. Anchoring the opposite end of the Bala Avenue with a bus depot is a very non-desirable use that damages the community. I noticed on one of the slides a reference to 230 parking spots for students at Harriton High School. It seems incomprehensible to me that this board would burden taxpayers with an undesirable use, protecting parking spaces for students, when in fact our taxes pay for the very busing of which the district seems so proud. Absurd is the word that comes to mind. There is also a well-used playground on Bala Avenue to which people have spoken tonight. The street narrows at that point, and I think there's some very real safety concerns. So I hope you will take all of these things into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Daniel Powell. Daniel? I'm sorry, is Daniel Powell next? Pardon me?
I swapped with Lori.
Lori's not up yet. Her name's not up yet. It's Daniel Powell's next.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Dr. Daniel Powell. I'm a resident of Bala Cynwyd. I'm a cancer researcher, and I'm a father of 3 who take advantage of the school's busing system. And for that, I'm very thankful. It's a wonderful system. I am in opposition of the proposal for development of the Bala facility. And I think I can tell you a personal story that reflects upon this. We spent the past weekend exploring the Bala Avenue corridor, shopping at the stores. We saw Maleficent at the theater. We purchased ice cream at the new facility at the station. This has become a very productive village, which can now be built upon. I think the time is incorrect to draw attention to the lower portion of Bala Avenue for the creation of a bus facility, which doesn't meet the initiatives of the commission. I was initially drawn to this area because of the school district. I was struck by the commission's vision of this business development. I think that they have achieved that goal. With regard to fiscal responsibility, as a cancer researcher, we do a lot of research before we even begin our experiments. We've heard a lot of delightful and creative ideas tonight. I charge you with exploring those options before making any movement forward. As a father of 3, I also have concerns about the safety of my children. I can tell you that I live on off of Ballot Avenue, on Aberdale Avenue, which is a small street, and already our neighbors here can attest. I'm a screamer. Slow down. We have a problem with people speeding on the street. The addition of congestion on Ballot Avenue, on City Line Avenue, is only going to make things worse. I thank you for your consideration. I implore you to explore additional considerations and opportunities. I also ask that you consider what the fiscal impact will be on the community of generating such a facility that doesn't provide tax revenues to the local community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have David Yaville. Okay, no, I called Marcus, sorry. David Yaville, Francie McComb, Lori Salagnikoff, and Liz McCaffrey.
Hi, my name is David Yaville. I am a resident of Ballackinwood. I also live on Aberdale Road. I live 3 houses from that park. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Your duties, your number one duty is safety. Safety of our children and safety of our community, and you're jeopardizing that. Even thinking about putting buses on that street is jeopardizing that. And Ms. Friedman, I take it really personal. I went to this high school. I graduated here in '93. This is my community. It's very upsetting. And you have to consider safety. Number one, forget put 10 buses here and 15 buses here. Dr. Marseille, have you ever driven down Ballot Avenue?
I have not.
You haven't driven down Ballot Avenue, and you're proposing even supporting this? Are you serious?
Can I
Sir, honestly, I can't believe you would actually come before this community and even support this program, and you haven't even driven down the street?
Can I clarify my statement, sir?
Sure.
Because I said earlier that I appreciate the passion and commitment that individuals come here, and I know that it comes from a common place, even though it might not seem that way. With regards to driving to Ballot Avenue, I went and visited the property. I met there with a handful of individuals to take a look at the property. The time in which I drove down that property, I'm not sure whether or not it would give me a reflection or an analysis, but I did drive down that property, and I was on the facility to take a look at the feasibility of that particular property.
Okay, well, I apologize then if you did drive down the street, but
no,
it's about this wide. You can't drive buses down that street. I walk from my house every day to the train. I commute. I know what it's like in the morning. You can't drive buses down that street. And this stuff about the high schoolers parking, it's insane. I graduated here in '93. There was about 10 parking spots. We dealt with it. They don't need to drive. I mean, it's outrageous, seriously. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Francie McComb, and I've lived in Ballackinwood, surprisingly enough, for 17 and a half years, and I'm actually a lifelong resident of this township. Dr. Marseille, Winston Churchill would have some great advice for you, and I hope this is okay, because it's Winston Churchill, so it's always appropriate. Winston Churchill once said that if you're going through hell, keep going. Okay, so this board decided to expand LM. You did that. And at the time, Dr. Gilbert and others said it was going to cost, and I quote, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was almost nothing. It was going to be cheap because they were going to use the DAO. And this parking situation for the buses is a direct outbreak of that situation. So it's not almost nothing when you've put a letter of intent out for about $4 million. They're unwilling sellers, so we don't know what it would ultimately cost to buy it, 5, 6, 7, 8. But also, and I think we do need a budget, somebody asked for that, the DAO construction itself costs money. And I'd like to see that added to this so that the community has an idea of what this whole project. Let's say that DAO construction's $5 million, and I've heard something about a covered walkway, so maybe that makes it go up. Then you have another $4 to $8 million for the buses. What is this all costing us? But I have great news. I'm a solver. I'm a giver. You guys have solutions in front of you, and I was actually thrilled today to hear some of them. For example, and this is very nice, I heard that you have management challenges. Well, this is like when I wanted to expand my kitchen, and I wanted to make it look like something in the magazine, and my husband said, well, we have financial challenges, which are you're going to make it look like what our budget is. So assume your budget is 0, which is almost nothing, by the way, and what you promised us. You have some great options. You could put 4 more at Belmont Hills. You could put 6 at BC. I'm looking at your presentation. 8 at Penn Wynne, 5 or 6 in Matson Fort. That's 24, 25 right there. Yes, staff might have to get shuttled, and I think Dr. Pollard made a great idea on that. You also have St. Justin, for which you had, according to Dr. McGinley, no plans. Well, I got news to whoever said that earlier. You could append it on to Welsh Valley, and under Lower Merion Code, buses are a permitted ancillary use. So you don't have an issue. You're allowed to have schools in residential areas, and you're allowed to park buses there. So I think you have solutions in front of you, and it's fabulous. Take the year. Get it right. And Dr. Marseille, I hope you have many, many days that are better than tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always hard to follow Francie. I'm Sarah Peveroff-Shue. I'm on the board of the Neighborhood Club. I'm a parent of 2 children at BC Middle School. I'm a landscape architect by training, so I have some professional opinions about this. I want to start with a slightly different approach. No one ever asked me for lunch money at school, but I've witnessed injustice in the classroom, in the workplace, and this summer, I feel like I witnessed it by this school board. Because what upsets me the most about this is the process. When there's an identified community need and a person or an agency attempts to thwart that by virtue of their position, that's bullying. And so many people have come up here to say, we don't support this, we didn't know about it, we think that the process, the way that you've operated as our elected school board is a problem. Make no mistake about it, the way that the school board is operated is viewed as hostile by our community, uncooperative, uncollaborative. So I ask you tonight to try to change this relationship and this process, because Dr. Marseille referred to dialogue. There has not been dialogue yet. I am so interested in dialogue with my school board, and I hope that maybe you are too after hearing all these folks tonight. We're basically being told to pay our tax bill, but have no input in how that's achieved, right? So I'm saying no tonight. And I've heard pretty much without exception, no to a bus depot on Bala Avenue from countless people. What is sort of amazing to me is that there is a zoning ordinance being worked on by the Board of Commissioners right now. And I can't believe that the folks here don't know about that. In fact, if we took a show of hands and says, does anybody out here in the audience, do you know that for 10 years people have been working on how to revitalize Bala Avenue, but our commissioners want to introduce a zoning ordinance that would prevent this use on Bala Avenue, and they want to do it soon. So why would our school board even be looking at a property on that street if you know that the community and the township is working to prevent that very use there? So I urge you tonight, think about the community that you've been elected to represent and listen to the folks here. We want to work together on a solution that's economically, financially sustainable, because I don't think it's sustainable to spend the kind of money that it's going to cost to buy that property and put something there. There are other options out there, and we need to find one that's physically acceptable to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz McCaffrey. Unfortunately, I don't live in Bala Cynwyd. I live on Kent Road, right behind the high school. I think that if you had the same conversation 10 years ago with the residents. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? Those of us that lived around the high school had the same concerns that the people are having tonight about the buses. We were worried about construction and all that came with the new high school. What I think that the school district needs to do is to help the people in the township understand about moving children on buses. That really you live with small people, large people, with many different needs. You're mandated to provide certain services that you have no choice in. And because you have to provide buses to kids in private schools and public schools, to intermediate units, I don't know that people really understand that. If you outsource buses, you outsource your risk. And no school district wants to have a child on a bus that's driven by a subcontractor that has a problem on that bus. And that happens when you outsource your buses. It's a fear that transportation people have all the time, especially when you're moving small children kindergarten age from kindergarten to their extended day program because their parents are working. So I think talking about the people and the children that are impacted by this is really important because that's how they get to school. We get mad about the high school kids that want to drive cars and all of that, but maybe that lessens the buses we need to use, or maybe they're 16 and it's kind of cool to do. But I think that we have to remember that a school is an organism, it's a living, breathing thing, and that yes, Lower Merion has more students than we ever thought it would be, and Harriton doesn't, has less, and so it presents problems, but it's a live thing that you're working with. And where we live, it's right on the field, and I can't tell you how many buses park there when the kids play football or the track meets come. I mean, they must be 10 deep. And there's a tiny little curve on my street, and they get in and out as they need to. It's tight, and it's a little scary at times, but they work it out. But I don't think you can underestimate the professionalism of the people that carry your children back and forth from school or minimize the importance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brody Stevens, Dan D'Aquila, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Patty Smith, Susan Shapiro, and Gordon Henry.
Hi, my name is Brody Stevens. I'm a resident of Schoolhouse Lane right next to Lower Merion High School, and I'm a member of the board of the North Ardmore Civic Association. As a direct neighbor of the high school, in this process of resolving the bus issue is especially important to me and my neighbors. As you know, we've only recently emerged from several years of heavy construction at the school, and we are happy to see that the current facilities, for the most part, fit very nicely within the present footprint. Most of the trees and landscaping that have been planted around the campus following construction are just beginning to now mature and enrich the environment and the look of the campus. And I personally, as a direct neighbor who looks at the site multiple times a day, am quite happy with how it has turned out to date. If the board does have adequate data to support the need to increase the parking at the high school due to enrollment, then I support the board's effort to seek alternatives that would, in lieu of further expanding, the concrete and asphalt facilities at the high school. Those things would have a negative impact on the neighborhoods around the school. I think they could present safety issues for students, and there could be other undesirable consequences relating to stormwater management or other issues if you start to change the current site. While I'm happy to see this meeting, it is disappointing that we now find the board engaged in this very late in this process that's angered our fellow community members in Bala Cynwyd and elsewhere. And it is dismaying also that the board is pursuing another significant capital investment related to parking of the buses that does appear to be directly related to the board's decision last year to expand the school choice zone, but was never really included in the capital cost evaluation of the options presented to the community at that time. Moving forward, I support the statements that have been made that the board should continue to consider and discuss the costs and benefits of different options much more openly and consider a few other things. First, fairness. I think that just as we all benefit from the strength of the high school, we all share some responsibility for supporting the school, including dealing with the necessity of buses. I think we need to think more about enforcing existing rules relating to parking. Some have said if we should reduce the number of permits that students get, which I understand, but I also believe that that could increase the burden of parking around the neighborhoods around the school. And I think that around the school, we definitely deal with a lot of congestion currently, and I think the board should consider things like moving the DAO, capping enrollment at the school, and then encouraging people to walk, use public transportation, have staff carpools, engage in programs that would reward them. And lastly, fiscal responsibility, using existing property and considering more about what modifications can be done to existing property as opposed to accepting them as they are and then ruling them out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Merced, Dr. Gilbert, thank the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Again, this is a great forum, good information exchange. Wish it was earlier. I guess a previous speaker used the word process.
Excuse me, Dan. I know who you are, but nobody else does.
Dan Aquila, Wynwood Civic Association. And we do endorse North Ardmore's views as well. But what I was getting to is really this is a little bit of deja vu. The process is the product of your work, and we need good process to get through these topics. This situation is sensitive in the community, as you can see, divisive within the community, and we need a transparent process. Saying all that, this was some very good information we saw this evening. There's still some details that I think that need to be worked out that were kind of vague. It was a lot of information to throw at us all at once. We need to be able to see it, digest it, and understand, and be able to have a form to come back to you, and that's what we're requesting. If we can continue that process, that would be really excellent. We really felt from last year and the debate and discussion around the school choice expansion, it was really truncated. The process got truncated too quickly, and I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths about that. And if we could just have a better and more transparent dialogue, that'd be great. Lastly, I think we saw there is room for more creative solutions. Outsourcing is one of those. I think that could be pursued more. I know the legal counsel thinks not, but maybe there might be. But a little change to that might be, how about outsourcing the bus storage and the bus maintenance to a off-site location where you don't have to buy the land. You can maybe contract with someone to hold your buses, maintain your buses. You send your drivers there, and the drivers can take the buses from there. That's another possible solution. I don't know if that's been looked at. So in summary, thank you for tonight. Please, let's see this through to completion in a public, transparent way, and I think then it will be best for the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Patty Smith and Sarah Haggerty, Susan Shapiro, Gordon Henry.
Okay, I'm Gordon Henry, so I guess two of your speakers didn't show up. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a resident of north side of Ardmore, so I live just behind the high school. I've lived here for almost 20 years. I have 3 kids who've gone through the public high schools. One just graduated Lower Merion. Well, it sounds like maybe some of the folks who are here tonight speaking are here for the first time or for the first chapter in this discussion about buses. We who live in North Ardmore and the area surrounding the high school have been here many, many, many times before. This is not our first rodeo. The the expansion of the high schools or modernization of the high schools to 1,250 students, that was a promise made by this board, and some of the members are still here, by Jamie Savadoff, who said to the community of North Ardmore, you're going to have 1,250 kids at Harridan, 1,250 kids at Lower Merion. We are making you a promise that that will be the number of kids in this high school. That was a promise. That promise, unfortunately, was broken less than 5 years later than it was after it was made. It is now 1,650. So that was a promise made to our community that was not kept. After that, the 400 that were added here, there was no mention of adding parking to this facility, or of adding a deck to this facility. The selling of those 400 students to this community was basically that you had classrooms sitting there that could be converted in the, whatever you call that, DAO building, and nobody said, oh, you're going to have more parking on this site. So there was another promise made to our community, and I feel like this discussion about adding more parking to this facility is breaking that. I should add, by the way, when you see those numbers up there about the number of buses and the number of students who park here, it's not just what you see there. There's plenty of kids who park in our neighborhoods who also park on the streets who aren't counted there. So we bear that burden as well. So now the last piece was, of course, as was cited by Patrick Denane, the commitment to 24 buses on this location, which was, I guess, a law or regulation, however it was described, hard and fast. And yet I hear tonight talk of relief from 24 buses at this site. I ask you, I implore you, I mean, if you're going to make promises to the community and years and years of meetings that folks here attended, keep those promises. Keep those promises. We can't keep supporting these commitments for these numbers and then, afterwards, because it's a new board or a different superintendent or a different commissioner, the rules change. That's just not fair. And I think we, as you've heard tonight in North Ardmore, have supported this board before, and I implore you to keep those commitments and not add further congestion to this site. Ardmore has really borne its share of the burden. We have the school, we have the student parking, we have the buses. It's appropriate to share that burden throughout the township. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Patty, Sarah, or Susan, are they here? Okay, then we'll go on to Peter Schulman, Barrett Dunnigan, Lori Salaganikoff, I think I said it right, and Elizabeth Abercrombie.
I'm Peter Schulman. I didn't come here with a definite conclusion, just the initial impression. What were they thinking? And that's pretty much where I still am. We never got a question section, so I don't know what the requirement for student parking is, and I would love to understand how many parking spaces you have to have, particularly since there appear to be a much higher percentage at Harridan. So is it based on income? I don't know. If the congestion assumption of fewer students driving because they're taking buses is accurate, then if we reduce the student parking spaces, we'll have much less congestion. Require carpooling for the students you are going to give spaces to. It's required in all other kinds of places. That's one way to cut down. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but as an example, you've said that many more students live in the East. Well, if 2/3 of the students live in the East, 1/3 don't. And there's no reason all of the buses would have to come from one places, along with the suggestion of the gentleman who talked about the hub. If 2/3 of them are in the East, have 2/3 of the buses there to service them, and 1/3 in the West, because it certainly takes longer to get there from the edge of the East than it does from someplace closer. We didn't have very much information going into this, which is why what I'm talking about is kind of ad hoc. I really didn't have any kind of framework. And as the gentleman who was back here didn't want to talk about stuff that he didn't have details in front of, I didn't want to have to rely on "I have no idea what's going on" to refer to as my details. It would be nice to be able to get this information. Back in grad school, I wrote a simulation of a chicken farm so we could tell the farmers when to most effectively begin their chickens to give them the best return. Why don't we do a computer model that takes into consideration the costs and the traffic and how to do this, and then we can try lots of things very cheaply by adding things into the model. As to a particular location to put this, I don't know that there is one necessarily, but because of not in my backyard, the best place to put it probably is where there are not many backyards, the least populated places. And last, if there is a requirement by the commission that doesn't let the school board do things, or the zoning board that prevents it, you guys have a feud going? Can't you get together and talk about what's best for everybody, for the community, for the students? It would be nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Barrett?
Good evening. My name is Barrett Dunnigan. I'm a resident of Bala Cynwyd, and I'm also president of the Cynwyd Heritage Trail, the Friends of them. The trail, hopefully you've all had a chance to go on. If not, I hope you get on there soon so you can say you knew it when. Shortly, the Manayunk Bridge will begin construction and will be connecting to the greater circuit of Philadelphia. With that, a part of the master plan is to continue down the trail towards adjacent to Bala Avenue towards City Avenue, and then also to Bala Station. And what's important about that is we pass by not only these properties, but we intend to connect with the property owners and the people that reside there to have them to also use the trail and create the greater connectivity with City Avenue as well. I think I just wanted to reiterate on the letter that I had sent to the board just to let you know a little bit more about the trail, and then hopefully understand what the views of the township and the Friends are moving forward. On a personal note, and as someone that's worked background in real estate development, I've always known to ask the question of how quick can you get to know. So what that means is how quickly is your timing, because timing is always money, and how you work through your due diligence. And I think we've already discussed here tonight on how this seems to be a little bit more of an inverted process from what a typical true development project would be. But hopefully what you're seeing is understanding a lot of the interest, around what happens on Bala Avenue, what's going into the zoning, what's going into a master plan for a connection of the trail, how people in the neighborhood feel. And we just want to be here to voice our opinion as well. So hopefully you take all of that into account and you have this discussion further and listen to a lot of the great other opportunities that might be out there for what may seem to be better decisions, particularly as us being your investors of looking at what your development's going to be. We want to make sure that your pro forma is going to be something that we want to invest in, and that's investing in you and then also the district as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Abercrombie. My family lives and walks in Bala Cynwyd. And this proposal is basically making our very, very walkable community into a danger zone for my young children. We walk regularly to the Bala Cynwyd playground, which is located basically adjacent to this proposed parking bus site. What it means is that after school, my children will no longer be able to walk to the playground. It won't be safe to walk down Bala Avenue. The playground will be clogged with fumes. My children will be coughing, and my asthmatic son just won't be able to go there anymore. As your map clearly showed, this is an area of high density for young families with children who are school-aged, and this is the only walkable playground in the area. This means that now we have a lot of children and many children who live in apartment complexes who don't have a backyard to play in no longer able to go to a playground after school. The times you anticipate the bus traffic to be the greatest are between 4 and 6:30, which are the exact times that children coming home from school need to burn off energy. I implore you to rethink this plan, to look at the impact this is going to have on a community where you can't even pass 2 cars on the north end of Bala Avenue, where turning left from City Line Avenue into Bala Cynwyd is virtually impossible at 4 in the afternoon. Please do a traffic study of this area. Look at the impact you're going to have on walking, on families, on a mixed income area where many families live in apartment buildings, not in houses, and think about the impact it's going to have on all these young children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lori Salganikoff. I'm a resident of Bala Cynwyd. I'm also a member of the Land Use Committee of the Comprehensive Plan for Lower Merion Township. And as a member of that committee, which is a process actually that's been going on for the past 4 years, I have participated in discussions of Bala Avenue. There was a mention made earlier about the proposed rezoning, but the discussion of the vision for Bala Avenue has happened, and at least at the committee level. And the split zoning that resulted in the parking being right on Bala Avenue was one of the very first things that we focused on Bala Avenue as an issue to be remedied so as to avoid this sort of problem and to help to revitalize Bala Avenue. Bala Avenue is a former main street and can once again be a main street. I was also the historic preservation director for the Lower Merion Conservancy for several years, and as such, we added Bala Avenue to our preservation watch list because it was seen as a treasure that had great development pressures possible. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that it would be the school district that was pressing those pressures. But I understand that these concerns that you've heard this evening relating to the Bala Avenue improvements, the quality of the community, etc., is not actually your charge. Your charge is to figure out what to do with the vehicles that you've been told are your problem. And I would advise you to look at the recommendation that was made to you by the township to only look at commercially zoned properties and rethink that. In fact, open up your thinking and not restrict what you're looking at, either in the township or as just commercially zoned. For instance, institutional properties, there is no zoning for institutional properties in Lower Merion. Institutional properties are zoned residential. So you are cutting out an entire category of possible opportunity there. I don't know that the township has, or that the school district has put out an RFP for properties that might meet your conditions, and that might not be on the market, but that seems to me like a wise thing for you to be looking at. I would also have you ask once again, and I've asked at the last 2 meetings, that you evaluate what exactly is requiring you to have these additional vehicles. We heard at the neighborhood club meeting from your communications director that it was a state requirement. I asked for clarification of that and haven't gotten it.
Thank you. We have Linda Brightstein.
I'd also ask you to take away your eminent domain threat. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Linda, Serge Nalbanchen, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Cecile Steinride, and Stephen Gleason.
Good evening. I'm Linda Brightstein. and I want to go on record as saying I oppose the bus depot on Bala Avenue. But what I want to talk about right now is that I find it very interesting that your next steps, which were posted on the wall, are no longer there. And I take that very seriously as your commitment to the community. And the very first thing you said in your next steps is, next step is continued dialogue with the community. Well, that's been taken off the wall. There was nothing tonight that seemed to be like a dialogue. I urge you to have a more transparent process going forward, to slow down the process so that we get more people in the community, not only during the summertime, but during the fall, to come out to a true public meeting where we're not just talking at each other, but we know that you actually have heard us. Because tonight, I heard you say which locations don't work, but you didn't say anything about what we've been complaining about, that it was dangerous to put a site on Bala Avenue. Nobody responded to that. So I'm not exactly feeling heard, and I'm not sure that the community is feeling heard. If we're truly going to have a dialogue, let's plan to have a true dialogue going forward. Please slow down this process and have another true community dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Gleason. I would like to thank you for having this opportunity to have a
Sorry,
discussion.
can you just say where you live? Not your address, but just...
Rosemont. You've done a lot of work tonight, but I think there's a lot more work to be done in addressing this problem. Unfortunately, I think this board has shown a history of spending money first and asking questions later. And as a result, next year, you're on target to spend $29,503 per student in the district. So I just want to introduce a couple financial questions that I think need to be answered. First of all, you did rule out a lot of sites, but unless I missed it, I didn't really hear why 30 is the magic number of buses, where these buses are coming from. Are they new buses? Are they driven just by increased enrollment or other factors? So that's the first thing. Secondly, I heard of, again, a $4 million number to buying the parcel on Bala Avenue. If you divide that by the 7,949 students in the district next year, that's another $503. So if you're looking to piss off the entire community and break the $30,000 per student barrier, you just found a great way to do it, but I think it's a huge mistake. You ruled out a lot of options, but I think the biggest thing I heard tonight is the impact of student driving, how it creates congestion. And again, doing a little bit of math, there's a disparity of 135 parking spaces between Harriton's 99 and Lower Merion's 234. If you divide that 135 by 48 students that a bus can handle in the secondary level, that would mean you'd only need 3 more buses to accommodate these students. I mean, this is ridiculous that you're even spending, as the other woman said, talking about spending $1 to fix a problem that doesn't exist. These kids do not, driving a car to a brand new $100 million high school in order to receive a $29,000 education is not a birthright. The district must, thank you, but I want to finish. The district must restrict, reduce, or even eliminate student parking in order to live within its campus and within its means. And finally, for a suggestion, eliminating late buses will allow you to save money, save miles on the road, and for once, be in compliance with the Pennsylvania School Code, which mandates identical, and that is the word, identical transportation for public and non-public students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nazreen Malik, Michael Jacobs, John Gee.
Hi, I'm Michael Jacobs. I live on Schoolhouse Lane, which is right across from the high school. Actually, I live right next to Brody, who spoke earlier. I just want to stress, after going through this whole presentation, it seems like all of the options we're talking about were all very expensive, and I think we need to think outside the box and try to find cheaper options, including maybe looking at land outside of the township. I know that was described as a requirement or some sort of restriction that was put on the process. I'm not sure if that was really necessary. Certainly, there are a lot of places that are outside of the township that are actually closer to the more populated parts of the township than parts that, places that are within the township itself. And I also just want to remind everyone, I mean, this probably is a little repeating what Mr. Henry said earlier, but a lot of promises were made in the process of building this new school. It came out great. I'm happy it's here. It's been a good neighbor, and I'm also okay with the whole idea of, even though we were promised a balanced population and a smaller population at this school when the process was finished, that actually now we're going to end up with a larger population here. I'm fine with that, but I think we need to look and remember that this particular neighborhood has borne much more of the burden than any other neighborhood in the township in this process, and not just financially, which obviously everyone here is concerned about, but the actual physical burdens of having the students parking in the streets and having the construction going on. And we need to, remember that promises were made, and that some of these burdens, if they're absolutely unavoidable, which I hope they are avoidable, need to be shared a little bit more. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anyone left on my list. I don't have anyone left on my list.
Okay.
I'm last. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you. It's all right. Don't worry about it. It's late. Hi. John Gee, 55-year veteran of Bala Cynwyd. I just had a couple questions. I'm a professional engineer in Pennsylvania, professional planner in New Jersey.
I apologize. Can you say your name for me again?
Oh, yeah, it's easy. G-E-E, Gee. Real easy. And I help boards like yourself solve problems all day long. That's what I do. And I just had a couple questions, real quick questions. Do you have a professional firm advising you relative to the things that some of the were said in the letter, as far as the need, the planning, the projections, those type of things? Okay. Well, in my 38 years of experience, I think you need to get a new firm. Okay? Part of planning is feasibility. And it's not feasible. A blind person could figure that out. You just have to stand on the corner and listen to the beeps and the horns and the traffic. I take my child down to the park. It's a park for little kids. It's not a park for big kids. There's nothing there for big kids to do except tennis, maybe. The other thing is with the planning that you've done, it appears to me that there's been planning mistakes in the past. I would be really careful with your planning now. I have supported eminent domain claims by boards like yourself. You don't have any basis for that. I'm just telling you right now. So don't try it. That's free advice. You don't have to pay me a dime. Finally, I just want to say that I am very proud of Lower Merion School District. You are the best in the entire country as far as educating children, and don't get bamboozled by some engineering firm that wants design revenues to design you a bus depot somewhere when you don't need one. And if you want some free help, I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Oh, that wasn't that bad. First time. I want to say this, and and those who may not believe it, because there's obviously, I said earlier, a tremendous amount of passion and commitment to your community, our community. And though it resonated with, it came out of so many of our speakers, I'm glad Judy's still here, because I really felt her passion and frustration and concern for what is happening. Not that the other speakers didn't convey that, but that resonated with me deeply. And there were a lot of issues raised tonight and a lot of concerns. And I know that there were promises, one speaker talked about promises made previous administration. And I want to say that there is conversations across the board around safety, and I heard that. Administration heard that. There's conversations about the vision for Bala Avenue, and I heard that. There were statements around fiscal responsibility, and I heard that as well. I heard that there is room for creative thinking and alternative ways to think about this process, and to inform you that I heard that. There were questions about looking at student parking. Is that an area in which to look at what are the requirements, regulations in terms of that process? I heard the request for this board and administration and our elected officials and commissioners to come together and find viable solutions to this issue. Congestion, I heard a lot about in terms of what that presents for the neighbors, community, and the children there. So with that, this administration, I'll let Dr. Gilbert speak for a few minutes, will take those and continue our collaboration. I heard transparency was another piece as well, but I wanted to at least, in my part, end this with acknowledgement that this administration, I'm sure the board here, heard all of those, and thank you for weathering the storm and staying here so late to express that and help us better understand and provide input and solutions to this process.
Thank you. I will echo Dr. Marseille's set of issues that he heard. I think we all heard those set of issues, and I think that it's important for people to know that this board has been planning for a long time around these enrollment issues, that when Dr. McGinley, our previous superintendent, realized that our internal numbers were showing enrollment increases, far more than what we expected, that he asked the board to hire a professional firm to do an analysis, which they did, which is on our website and which was discussed at many meetings, and that as that has been accurate, we have been dealing with the implications for budgets, for staffing, for facilities, and all the rest of it. So we've been doing this for a while, and we certainly want to work with all communities to try and come up with the best solutions for all of these kinds of issues, and we will continue to do so. And I appreciate everyone staying late. At this time, I believe that we're going to work on another FAQ. We will continue the conversation. At this time, we actually have to go to our regular meeting, which has an agenda that makes sure that the bills get paid and all the rest of it. So I think at this time, we will move on to that agenda. You're more than welcome to stay if you'd like to. but we certainly understand if you've, 11 is time to leave. So I'll just take a quick break here if people want to go ahead, and then we'll resume in just, a minute. Thank you. Okay, I'd really like to start the regular agenda so that we can eventually go home, if we can do that. So, good night. I just need to find where I am on the regular agenda. I think we're actually at the approval of the minutes from previous meetings. So I'm going to look to approve the minutes of the June 9th regular business board meeting, as well as accepting the minutes from the July 17th Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Dr. Marseille, we're on to human resources.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Superintendent recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the human resource actions listed as exhibits HR through 5.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Recommendation that just Board of School Directors approves the temporary appointment of Dr. Joyce Vidlock for professional services as independent consultant to the Student Service Department for the period of July 1st, 2014 to November 30th, 2014 at the discretion of the superintendent or his designee per exhibit HR-6.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the overnight field trip request as per exhibit CS-1 to CS-6.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Recommendation that approve the independent consultant contract with Najee Grant for the supervision of the Lmsb Summer Incubator Program in the amount of $1,400.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Ben. Second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the contract for services between Lower Merion School District and Dr. Will Parker of Boyd Griffin Educational Associates for the professional development work at August 2014 NTAP in the amount of $5,000.
Would anybody mind if we do D and E as well at the same time?
Sure.
Okay, can you?
Thank you. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approves agreement for services between Lower Merion School District and Hyman Harvey Daniels for professional development and literacy during March 2015, the summer of, in the amount of $9,000. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the agreement between Lower Merion School District and Hyman for professional development regarding comprehension and collaboration during August 2014, amount of $9,000.
Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve? Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the student services items as listed. Agreement for students receiving non-district educational services per exhibit SS-1 through SS-22.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is passed.
If it's okay, I'd like to take actions B, C, and D at the same time. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the independent consultant contracts per exhibit SS-23 through exhibits SS-31. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the education alternatives for ABA for $100 an hour per exhibit SS-32. And the recommendation that the Board of School Directors approves the Bayad Healthcare contract at $49.95 per hour per exhibit SS-33.
Are there any questions? I should say this has all been reviewed at a facilities meeting that was held last week, last Thursday, so which we'll be getting a report about shortly. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion's passed.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the trainer service agreement for Reconstructive Orthopedic Associates to provide certified trainers for the high school's athletic program and concussion screening in the amount of $82,460 per exhibit SS-34.
Are there any questions? Motion to approve? Thank you, Suba. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ben. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. So,
At this time, I'll pass it over to Mr. Driscoll. Wait.
Yes, the Facilities and Purchasing Committee met this past Thursday, July 17th at 8:30 in the morning over at the DAO. And just some of the items, we went over the list of bills, the bills we get every month. We also reviewed the purchasing report that includes contracts for the fuel purchasing bid. This is basically, we're going to buy fuel in bulk, try to drive our prices down, and paper products, napkins and things like that for food services. We also discussed renewing our Reliance Communications. This is the school messenger. This is the wonderful system where you get to hear Doug's voice telling you that school is closed, which I think makes all the students happy. We also looked at a proposal for using Blackboard software. This is a software product that's been out there for a long time. We're going to run this as a pilot program. It's a little more robust system, more of an online system, so hopefully it'll be moving forward into our digital initiatives. We also reviewed a proposal for IM pools. These guys both provide like services as well as chemical maintenance of our pools and help us keep the community gets to use the pool, which I know a lot of people enjoy. We talked about Mainline School Night. This is an adult education service. They just use our building for a couple nights in the spring and the fall, so we're just renewing a contract we've done with them in the past. We also reviewed PlanCon's G and H, for the Welsh Valley construction project. Reviewed change orders for all the ongoing construction, Penn Valley, Gladwin, and we received an update on the elementary and middle school enrollment expansion programs from Reynolds Construction. Our next meeting will be August 14th at 8:30 a.m. over in the DAO, and that's it.
Under the Business Office and Finance, we have 4 items for approval. I'm going to take them all in one motion. Approve the list of bills for payment, approve the financial report for June 2014, acknowledge receipt of the first quarter student activity reports, and also the administration recommends the board accepts with pleasure pursuant to policy 702 the following donations and gifts to the school district. The first one is $500 from API Partners to Lower Merion School Robotics Club, $4,255 from the Marion Elementary Home and School to the school towards a new sign to be installed outside the school, $13,500 from the Penwood Elementary Home and School Association towards updating the projector in the school cafeteria, donation of the Promethean Active Expression Systems valued at $1,600 from Marita McCarthy, who's a teacher at the school, to Marion Elementary School.
Before I ask for questions, I'd just like to say on behalf of the entire board that we are very grateful for the donations from all of the different groups that are supporting our schools. Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Under Facilities and Operations, we have 8 items for approval. I'm going to take them all in one motion. Mr. Driscoll reviewed all these items that were discussed at the Facilities Committee. The first is to award the bids pursuant to the purchasing report for the Tri-County Food Service Paper Disposal and Cleaning Supplies, and also the Montgomery County Joint Purchasing Fuel Bid. Approve the agreement with IM Pools Management to manage the pool at Lower Merion High School from September 1st, 2014 through August 31, 2017. Approve the license agreement with Mainline School to provide classes in both the spring and the fall. Approve the renewal of authorization with Reliance Communications for the school messenger system. That's subject to solicitor review. And let's see, approval of Blackboard Educational Software Bundle. Again, that is subject to solicitor's review. We have two Plan Cons. Plan Con G, which is the project accounting based on bids to PDE for the additions and alterations at the Walsh Valley Middle School, and also the submission of Plan Con H, which is the project financing to PDE for the additions and alterations at the Walsh Valley Middle School. And then finally, we have approval of change orders for additions and alterations at Penn Valley and the Gladwin Elementary School projects.
Thank you. I just want to mention that at the facilities meeting, we had a lively discussion about Blackboard educational software, and it is a pilot program, and we will be bringing that to the curriculum committee of the board for a full discussion on the sort of curriculum educational impacts during the academic year. So I just want to let people know that there was a discussion about that. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Ben. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Subo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Actually, Mr. Roos, can you, I think we're switching to the Board of Directors business, and you wanted to explain about the policies?
Yes, because you had your first reading last month. Typically, when it's on the board agenda for a second reading, that would be approval. However, you haven't had a policy committee meeting between the last board meeting and this one, and it's this policy committee's practice to have that before the second reading. So my recommendation is you need to keep it on the agenda because your policy 004 requires that it stay on the agenda, but you just need a motion to, you just need someone to move to table this until the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion to table it? Thank you, Marissa. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes, and we'll be discussing this in the fall. At this point, we do not have any other committee meetings, reports, because the only committee that meets over the summer is facilities and purchasing. Are there any other items that anybody wants to bring up at this point? Okay, so at this time then, this is the time when anybody can come to speak on any issue. So I don't know if there's anybody else who would like to speak, but now is the time to do it. So is there anyone else who has the stamina to speak at this point? So, okay. Well, then I would like to, in accordance with the Sunshine Act, say that the Board of School Directors met in executive or information sessions on the following dates. So Thursday, June 19th, real estate, Monday, July 21st, that's right, real estate and personnel. So that is the Sunshine Act. Thank you very much to everyone who participated this evening. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.